Chapter 684. After gaining mobility, the first thing that Brother Jew did was naturally to observe the environment around him. At that moment, he was in a hexagonal space. The floor under his feet was smooth and solid, and the 6 sides around him were bookshelves. To be more precise, there were 6 bookshelves that were about 5 meters wide and 5 meters tall. The edges of the bookshelves fit together closely, and there was almost no gap between them. The bookshelves had books on both sides, and there was a partition in the middle. Even if one pulled the books out, one would not be able to see into the space next to them, only the partition. There was a certain distance between the top of the bookshelves and the ceiling. If Feng Bujue climbed to the top of the bookshelf, he would see that around this hexagonal space, there were 6 similar hexagonal spaces, and outside these 6 hexagons, there was another circle for a total of 12 hexagons, and so on and so forth. These hexagons continued to expand, forming an endless space that looked like a beehive. No way. Feng Bujue mumbled. The detective club? Yes, this is the detective club. Not far away, a voice suddenly answered Brother Jew. Who is it? Feng Bujue was startled and turned around. He saw a giant armored mannequin that was 5 meters tall and 1 ton in weight was standing at the spot where there was no one earlier. The mannequin's body was made from an unknown dark blue metal. Its body was V-shaped, and its arms and legs were as thick as thighs. There was a square head that looked like a mahjong tile on his neck, and his whole face was a monitor showing emoticons. Now that I mention it, you must have remembered that this was Billy the Puppet's younger brother, Bill. Who is it? Bill had an expression on his face. You've barged into someone else's place, and you're asking who they are? Oh, I know. Feng Bujue's expression relaxed. The Count of Script, is it? Ha! As he laughed, he took 2 steps forward and patted the man's arm. You sure know how to play. Last time you turned into a ball, a bird, and an old man, but this time you've turned into a robot monster. Mr. Feng. Suddenly, another voice sounded. Let's not talk about the fact that you've got the wrong person. Feng Bujue turned his head abruptly and saw a mouth, a human's mouth, hanging in the air. Even if you're not mistaken, the mouth said, this is only the 2nd time we've met. Where does your natural and familiar attitude come from? Air. Feng Bujue froze and looked at the mouth. The Count of Script? Whoosh, a strange noise was heard, and the big mouth in the air twisted and transformed into a leprechaun, also known as the Irish dwarf demon. Green clothes, green pants, green hat, and green boots, guarding the gold coin jar at the end of the rainbow. Then it replied, yes, it's me. In the next second, Feng Bujue awkwardly raised his head and laughed dryly at Bill, who was making a face. He then moved his hand away. The Count of Script then said, you can already see the sequence of truth, Datastream, but you still got the wrong person, of course. You didn't have that power the last time I saw you, Feng Bujue said. How would I know what your data looks like? Oh, right, the Count of Script said. I almost forgot, when you creatures with lower intelligence build the identification mechanism, you need at least 2 contacts. I say, who is he? Bill interjected. Do you want me to crush him and throw him out? No. The Count of Script suddenly exploded. Don't just crush things and toss them away. Okay. Bill said with a sad face. Calm down, Brother Zune. Ha! Brother Zune, is that the nickname you usually use for top intelligent creatures? Feng Bujue said in a mocking tone. Brother Zune, are you from Moncoke or Causeway Bay? Sigh. The Count of Script sighed helplessly. Let me make the introductions. He pointed at Bill. Feng Bujue, this is Bill, the younger brother of Billy the Puppet. Currently, he is my security guard. He rolled his eyes. By the way, if pocket size is a fashion, then Bill's brain is probably the most fashionable thing I have here. What do you mean? Bill asked with a face full of questions. I get it now. Brother Jew looked at the Count of Script with pity. Of the 3 words in your name, he doesn't know how to pronounce 2 of them, right? Sigh. The Count of Script answered the question with another sigh. Then he pointed at Brother Jew and turned to Bill. Bill, this is the famous Feng Bujue. Oh, so it's you. Bill took half a step back and lowered his head to study Brother Jew from head to toe. You are indeed strange, different from the others. The others? Feng Bujue caught on to something. He immediately turned to Bill and asked, "Do you know where the 5 people who came with me are?" "They are." Bill was about to answer when the Count of Script interrupted him. "They are where they should be." He successfully used a useless sentence to stop Fong Bujue from getting the information. "All right, Bill, there's nothing for you to do here. Go to the military and education section and pick a few books that you can understand." The Count of Script waved his hand to signal for Bill to leave. After saying that, Bill made a expression and turned to leave without a word. The moment he took a step forward, his entire body became transparent and illusory. It was as if he did not exist in this space in the first place. Let me guess. After Bill disappeared, Fong Bujue turned back to glare at the Count of Script with annoyance. Their bodies are still somewhere in this detective club, but their consciousness is already inside your brain. Humph! The Count of Script scoffed. "Originally, you were already inside my brain, but I did something to make you stay here. Tell me, what do you want from me?" Fong Bujue asked directly. Or rather, what is the content of the trade? Both of them were smart and understanding people. Seeing how straightforward the man was, the Count of Script did not shy away from the question. "You should have noticed my body has shrunk compared to the last time you saw me. Can't you adjust your body size freely?" Fong Bujue asked. "Originally I could, but now I can only adjust it to a size smaller than 1 cubic meter." The Count of Script replied. "Because..." He used his finger to tap on his temple. "Something strange has sneaked in." His expression was serious. "I don't know what it really is. I only know, if we don't deal with it soon, there will be serious consequences." "Huh." Fong Bujue laughed drily. "You want me to take it out?" "Yes," the Count of Script replied. "Why don't you have your security do it?" Fong Bujue asked with a smile, letting Bill into my mind and giving him permission to move around. "Ha! Then I might as well do a lobotomy on my forehead." The Count of Script smiled bitterly. "Is that so?" Brother Ju's expression soon changed. "It's not that I can't do it, but..." He glanced at the Count of Script from the corner of his eyes. He rubbed the 3 fingers on his right hand together. "Is there no condition?" "Don't worry. Riches and glory," the Count of Script said expressionlessly. "Ha ha. Let's be more specific." Fong Bujue straightened his expression. "Are you going to give me the gold coin at the end of the rainbow?" Even though his expression had returned to normal, he was still mocking. "I will try my best to help you clear the scenario," the Count of Script said. "That is not a benefit at all," Fong Bujue replied. "I will guide you to obtain many valuable items and skills," the Count of Script said. Not bad," Fong Bujue said. "But it seems like that." He was still testing the Count of Script's bottom line. "Sigh." The Count of Script sighed again. "How about this, you take it out, and I will tell you the effect of unpredictability." Chapter 685. The 5 players who entered the scenario with Fong Bujue did not know that the setting of the scenario was inside the mind of the Count of Script, and they did not receive the special treatment that Brother Ju received. To them, this was just a very normal loading process. After the opening cinematic, the group arrived at an old wooden hut. After regaining their vision, they found themselves in a room that wasn't too big. In the middle of the room was a 4-legged wooden table, and there was a glowing oil lamp on the table. Other than the table and the lamp, there was no other furniture in the room. Main quest triggered. Looking for my corpse. Just as they stood still, the system announcement rang in their ears. From the looks of it, the main quest this time was quite normal, and the system did not give any restrictions. Where's Brother Ju? After regaining his mobility, Xiao Tan was the first to notice that someone was missing from a team. From the team tab, he is still alive, Ruo Yu said instantly. Perhaps he was transported to a different location than us. Fong Bujue. At that moment, of the other 2 unfamiliar players, the slightly larger one also saw Brother Ju's ID in the team tab. He immediately yelled in shock, Hey, don't tell me this is that Fong Bujue?" The thin one next to him added, "Which Fong Bujue?" "Of course, it's that Fong Bujue." The 2 players were male and looked about 20. They were about 1.7 meters tall, and one was fat while the other was thin. The fat one had a buzz cut, his eyes were bright, and his two rectangular eyebrows were like seaweed. His ID was Detective Bew, and his title was Human Flesh Firewheel. The thin one had long hair, and he looked like he was malnourished, like he would fall to the ground with a light breeze. His ID was Old Medicub, and his title was Human Supply Depot. From their in-game IDs, one could tell that they were two casual players. Before they started the game, they had already decided on their specialization. If the Underworld frontline players represented the highest level of casual players, then Bew and should be considered second-rate players. Of course, this wasn't too bad. For players at this level, even though they might not be able to do something as miraculous as a top player, they would not make such a low-level mistake. Their understanding of equipment, skills, masteries, and scenarios were all very mature. As long as there was an outstanding leader, these second-rate players could also be of great help to the team. If one had to make an analogy, these players were equivalent to the role players in the NBA. It was not difficult for a team to play cool as long as they had one or two superstars. However, if they wanted to win the championship, they needed these role players. They were the cornerstone of the team and represented the depth of the bench. Wow. You guys, you're all from the Underworld frontline. A few seconds later, Bew raised his eyes and looked at the badges on the clothes of the three people in front of him and shouted in surprise. That's right. Xiao Ling narrowed her eyes and replied, but our club is not that famous, right? Why are you so excited? Because you're from the same club as Mad God. Said weakly. Isn't that something amazing? Is it very amazing? Even Xiao Ling was taken aback upon hearing those words. I see. Ruoyu observed their expressions and quickly came to a conclusion. You guys are Jews in-game fans, right? She deliberately added the prerequisite of in-game, mainly to distinguish herself, the fan in real life, from them. That's right. Bew stared with his big round eyes and said, We are determined to become a maverick superclass master like Mad God. I do agree with the point of being a maverick. Ruoyu replied coldly. The meaning behind her words was, using the term superclass on Brother Jew was a waste of time. Then, the five of them chatted for a few minutes to get to know each other. Bew and were both outer members of Tiandi, the studio where Weighty Words is located, similar in nature to Jianghu's Not a Scaredy Cat. Although they were not professional players who clocked into work, they were the backbone of the club. In the books world, no matter the size, 95% of gaming studios needed to recruit outer members. In other words, non-professional in-game players. Even Atobisama's IODI had recruited members like Black, White, and Gray. So, this was common knowledge in the industry. This was because, in a large MMORPG, number was also a symbol of power. It was a factor that could not be ignored in any guild or country. Like the Straw Hat Pirates, in most games, it wouldn't work. To give a simple example, in a game, there was a boss spawned in the wild. At that moment, Guild A sent 100 people, and Guild B sent 200 people. Who would be able to fight for the boss? This was obvious. Even if Guild B sent out 100 people to PK with Guild A, the remaining 100 people would be able to fight the boss. Most games that allowed PK were like that. There was no logic to it. Whoever was stronger would have the right to speak. Terms like first come, first served, rules of Jianghu, do me a favor, and so on. These were negotiation terms that would only be used when both parties were equal in power. When there was a huge disparity in power, there would be another set of negotiation terms like F***CK, your mother. Get out of here. And are you tired of living? In conclusion, number was important. One more person meant one more power. Even if it was a professional gaming studio like Order, they wouldn't dare to say something like, I don't need external members. In reality, they not only needed outer members, they needed a lot of them. Other than those PvP games that were similar to esports, regulation would offer generous terms in every MMORPG to attract those outer members who had a certain level of power. They were not the only ones. Jianghu, Stellar Union, Brahmin, Zombie Blade, and so on. Gaming studios of all sizes and styles did the same. Only a gaming studio like Blade would not accept an outsider. A few minutes later, Xiao Tan's expression suddenly changed. He asked, Do you guys smell something? As a surgeon, Xiao Tan's sense of smell was very sensitive, especially when it came to certain chemicals. Now that you mention it, it does seem to have the guts. After Bu heard this, he wrinkled his nose and inhaled while muttering, "Weird, pungent formalin." Xiao Tan gave the answer directly and walked to the corner of the wooden hut. It seems to be coming from behind this door. At that moment, they were in a room about 30 square meters. The roof was in the shape of an arched triangle, supported by two intersecting main beams and a few supporting pillars. The floor under their feet was old and dirty, but it was not rotten to the extent that it was emitting the smell. The four walls around them were wooden walls made of logs. There was not a single window on the wall, but on the two adjacent walls there was a door. I can't open it." Xiao Tan walked to the door, held the doorknob, and turned it. The notification that this door is locked rang in his ears. "It seems like we need a key." He paused. I am sure that the smell is coming from behind this door. The door here is also..." At this time, who was closer to the other door, also tried to open the door on his side, and he heard the same notification. "That's strange," Xiao Tan muttered. "The only two exits in this room are both locked." He thought for a moment. "So, there should be at least one key in this room." There's no key under the table. While Xiao Tan was talking, Xiao Ling had already squatted down to check. In the shadow under the table, the inside of the four table legs, and the back of the table, there was nothing. Whoosh! At this moment, there was a soft sound in the room. Everyone looked in the direction of the sound and saw a man in a long purple suit appeared in the originally empty corner. "Sorry, I'm late." Feng Bujue's gaze swept across the faces of the five people, and then he showed a relaxed smile. "Because of some trivial matters, I was slightly delayed." Chapter 686. This is the first time I've heard that loading into a scenario can be delayed. Ruoyu looked at Brother Ju and said, "Ha, let's not talk about it." Feng Bujue sounded like he was brushing them off, but what he really meant was, it's not convenient to talk about this now. The three from Underworld Frontline understood what he meant, so they did not say anything. As for the other two players, wow, it's Mad God. It's him in real life. Once Bu saw Brother Ju, he rushed forward like he was going to pounce on him. Ub also rushed forward to stand before Feng Bujue. He widened his soulless eyes like he was looking at some kind of monster that could only be seen in movies. "What you doing?" Feng Bujue did not know how to react to this sudden situation. He reached out to stop the two and asked loudly, "What do you two want? Do you want to turn me into chocolate and eat me?" No wonder he's Mad God. Even his impromptu criticism is so deep. Bu looked at Brother Ju with admiration. No wonder he's Mad God. Even entering the scenario slower than normal people. Ub nodded in agreement. "Why do I feel like these 2 points are nothing to brag about?" Xiao Ling narrowed her eyes and added, "Oh." Feng Bujue thought about it and quickly realized that these 2 players before him were his fans. He smiled and replied, "Guys, you can just call me Feng Bujue. The title Mad God sounds so weird, like I'm some kind of crazy person who is doing some crazy dance." "How can that be?" Bu replied seriously. "It's too rude to call Mad God by his name. Hey, that's just a nickname in the game, right? Furthermore, even if it's his real name, it shouldn't be a problem. Isn't a person's name meant to be called?" Feng Bujue mumbled. However, Brother Ju did not show it on his face and came up with a compromise. How about this? You can call me Teacher Ju. How about that?" "All right. No wonder you are Teacher Ju. Even a simple title can be so profound." Bu chimed in. "No wonder he is Teacher Ju," Ob added. "Even the names that he comes up with are weirder than normal." Ha! Feng Bujue revealed an awkward smile as he thought to himself. "So, these 2 are my random teammates. Should I be happy about this or feel a little bit of pain?" Then, Feng Bujue cleared his throat and steered the conversation back on track. "Then, may I ask, how is the progress of the script?" "See for yourself." Ruoyu tilted her head slightly and signaled her Brother Ju with her eyes. Ruoyu knew that Feng Bujue could observe the environment from the data level, so she was too lazy to say more. Of course, the others did not know that. Teacher Ju there are two exits in this room. Bujue ran to the wall excitedly and used his hands to point at the doors on both sides. Both of them said, "This door is locked. There's the smell of formalin coming from behind that door." I pointed at the door behind Xiao Tan and said quickly, "Hey, I was the one who discovered it, wasn't I?" Xiao Tan pouted. He looked like his credit had been taken away by someone else. "There is nothing under the table. I've checked it already," Xiao Ling added. "Before you showed up, I was planning to jump onto the roof to take a look. There is no need to go through so much trouble," Feng Bujue said as he took several steps forward to the table. "Could it be?" He reached out to pick up the oil lamp on the table. "Here." The next second, everyone's eyes focused on him, and they saw the key hidden under the lamp. "That's right. How could I have missed that place?" Xiaoling saw this and complained with annoyance. "So, this is what they mean by darkness under the lamp." Feng Bujue shrugged. He picked up the key and looked at the item description. Name: faded copper key. Item type: consumable quality. Normal function: open the door of a certain location can be taken out of the scenario. No remark. This key only corresponds to one door. It will not be used if it is inserted into the wrong keyhole. Then, he raised the key to show the item description to his teammates. So that makes things easier. 2 seconds later, Bujue said, "From the remark of the key, we don't need to worry about using the key because we choose the wrong door, and we don't need to choose between two doors. After all, only when we find the corresponding door will the key be useful. So, we can just put on the door and try it." "Yeah, you sure have a quick mind." Feng Bujue looked at Bujue with praise. Bujue's chubby face had the expression of a primary school student when he was praised. He scratched his cheeks with his fingers and giggled. "Teacher Ju, you flatter me. After all, I am a man who aspires to be a famous detective." "Yeah, Bu's reasoning ability is very powerful." Ub also nodded and said, "Now that you mention it," Feng Bujue said slowly, "I just realized you guys are a combination of a famous detective and an old military doctor. Yes, just like Sherlock Holmes and Watson." Bu's eyes lit up as he replied, "Teacher Ju, you must think we are very Chinibu, right?" Ub said darkly, "But that's okay. Only a dream that will be mocked out loud can be realized." "Not at all. I think this kind of dream is quite normal. It is similar to my childhood dream." Feng Bujue answered expressionlessly and glanced at Xiao Tan. Xiao Tan smiled at him awkwardly. Puff. Xiao Ling could not hold it in anymore. She covered her mouth and giggled. Ruoyu looked at Brother Bujue and Xiao Tan with a helpless expression and sighed deeply. "Oh, is that so? No wonder you are Teacher Ju. Even your childhood dream is so deep." Bujue's admiration rose again. Ub's soulless eyes were also shining. "No wonder you are Teacher Ju. Even your life goal is higher than normal people." Ha! Ha! Let's try the key first. To prevent these two from continuing their praises, Feng Bujue quickly laughed drily. He took the key and walked to the door behind Xiao Tan. "Let's try this one first. The smell behind this door is quite suspicious." As he spoke, Brother Bujue reached the door. He reached the key into the keyhole, but after a few tries, he realized that he could not get it in. "Isn't it this door?" Feng Bujue mumbled as he walked to another door. "Then this should be it." This conclusion was reasonable because there were only 2 doors in this room. The key should be able to open at least one of them. But the reality was, Feng Bujue stood before the door that did not smell, and his expression changed. "Not this one either. What's going on?" Xiao Tan asked. "Brother Bujue, did you put in the wrong way?" "How is that possible?" "Of course, I tried both the front and the back." Feng Bujue replied. "Looks like this key." He lowered his head to look at the key in his hand. "Corresponds to a door somewhere else, and not the 2 doors before us." Bu was confused. "The problem is, if we don't open these 2 doors, we won't be able to go to somewhere else." Ub added, "Then aren't we overcomplicating the problem?" He paused. "The floor, walls, and roof of this room are all made of wood. We're all level 40, so we can break through the walls with a simple skill. Why will we need a key? No, that won't work." Feng Bujue immediately denied Ub's theory. Then he turned to tell Xiao Ling, "Laughing Soul, when there were outsiders around, Brother Ju would usually refer to his teammates by their game IDs, except for Xiao Tan. Give me a normal quality pistol. Before he could finish his sentence, Xiao Ling casually took out a Glock 17 from her bag and tossed it over. Brother Ju took the pistol, and without saying anything, he opened the safety and fired at the door. Bang! When the gunshot rang out, the bullet had already hit the target and bounced back. A layer of transparent ripples appeared on the surface of the door. Then the bullet was bounced back by an invisible force and hit Ub. After Ub was shot, he did not react much. He lowered his head and silently looked at the wound on his thigh. Bu said with some thought, using brute force to open the door is not going to work. That's right. Feng Bujue tossed the gun back to Xiao Ling and said nonchalantly, "This is not some newbie scenario, but a team scenario for 6 high-level players to team up to clear. Why would the system allow something like this to happen?" I say, Brother Ju. Xiao finally could not hold it in anymore. "You are too calm. You shot him, and he is bleeding." "I did not do it on purpose." Feng Bujue shrugged. "Actually, I cannot do this on purpose because we are teammates. If I have any intention to harm him, the system will definitely stop me." He pointed at the door. "In any case, based on our experience, we can come to a conclusion. Using brute force to break into this room is not going to work. The attack will be randomly bounced back, and it will harm the 6 of us. No wonder you are Teacher Ju, to be able to analyze such a simple phenomenon so deeply." The admiration in Bu's eyes deepened. "You have a point." Who was shot, agreed. "No wonder you are Teacher Ju. You are more direct than normal when you're explaining your point of view." The shocking thing was, as Ub spoke, he used 2 fingers to catch the bullet that was shot in his thigh. Throughout the whole process, his expression did not change much. He was still in his malnourished state, and there was no trace of pain on his face. "Hey, this hero, you're using the legendary Russian method of bullet extraction, right?" Seeing this, Xiao Tan, who was a doctor, could not help but grumble. "Haha, I'm sorry." Ub smiled proudly. "I use the ability of my title, Magnetic Finger," he explained. "I can use a very low expenditure to make my finger continuously release a certain amount of magnetic force. Therefore, when I extract things like bullets or shrapnel, I do not need to use tools and do not need to expand the wound. I only need to use a suitable amount of force to suck the thing out." He raised the bloody bullet and added, "I am quite lucky. The surface of this bullet is plated with nickel. If it was a pure brass shell, then I would not be able to suck it out." Then, Ub used his hand to touch his wound. The next second, there was a flash of white light, which was obviously a medic skill, and the blood on his thigh stopped. By the way, my medic and workmanship mastery are both level B, so I guess you can say that I live up to the title of veteran medic. Very good, very good." Feng Bujue praised him with an admiring gaze. In his heart, he thought, "Excellent. Even though these 2 look quite amusing, they are not bad at all. The fat one has excellent puzzle-solving and analytical skills. The thin one is the most sought-after medic players in the game. Furthermore, they admire me so much, which means that they are both young men with aspirations and ideals. I should add them as friends after we clear the scenario. Can you temporarily put aside the despicable narcissism in your mind?" Suddenly, Yu turned to Brother Ju and said coldly, "Focus back on the scenario before you." "Hey, how did you know that? You can read my mind." Feng Bujue was genuinely shocked. "Looking at your eyes, I know what you are thinking. Ruo, you mimicked Brother Ju." She scratched her chin and chuckled coldly. These 2 are valuable. Since they're my fans, they must be very conscious men. Something like that. F***CK. Feng Bujue uttered a sentence that should have been blocked by the system, but was not. At this moment, this was the only word that could accurately express his feelings. I got it." Just as they were talking, Xiao Ling, who had been silent for a long time, came up with an idea. She immediately walked to the oil lamp on the table and said, "Everyone, be careful. I'm going to turn off the light." She did not care whether the others were ready or not. After she greeted them, she turned off the oil lamp. A mere second later, everyone was plunged into a pitch-black darkness. Oomph, as expected. A few seconds later, Xiao Ling's voice was heard again. Look, there are words on the door. Due to the pitch-black surroundings, the others didn't know where to look. However, after they tried to recall where they were standing, they found the thing that Xiao Ling was pointing at. Not long after, a few words that glowed faintly in green entered their sight. Chapter 687. The smell of formalin didn't come from behind the door, but from the surface of the door. About 10 seconds later, Xiao Ling turned on the oil lamp again. Because there wasn't much information on the door, anyone could memorize it after looking at it for a few seconds, and said, but under normal lighting, we can't see the liquid on the door. That's not right. Formalin has no color, Xiao Tan said. And it wouldn't be in the dark. There's nothing strange about it. Feng Bujua interrupted him. This means the liquid on the door isn't formalin. No way. I'm familiar with this smell. It shouldn't be wrong, right? When Xiao Tan said the second half of the sentence, he started to lose his confidence. Because you have more experience with formalin, so when you smelled a pungent odor like this, you subconsciously brought that experience into your mind and came to the wrong conclusion. Feng Bujua said as he walked to the door and leaned closer to take a look. He turned his back to his teammates, mainly because he didn't want them to see the black stream in his eyes. This liquid isn't a chemical agent, but the body fluid of some kind of creature. Brother Ju shared the information he obtained from the data. It should be the venom secreted by some kind of reptile. It contains something like melittin, so it turns green in the dark. After saying this, he stopped his observation and turned around. Of course, that's not the point. He paused. The point is the information described by the venom, the meaning of 2019, 2766. Could it be the coordinates? Bu immediately asked. I've considered this possibility, but there's a problem. Feng Bujue continued. Assuming these two numbers really represent a certain coordinate, why is one a whole number and the other accurate to 4 decimal places? He glanced around the room. According to my observation, the length and width of this room are about 6, 2 meters and 5, 1 meters respectively. If these two quantities are accurate to centimeters, it's about 620 and 510. To mark the coordinates in this range, is it necessary to use 4 decimal places? You're right. Bu nodded. Other than that, Feng Bujua walked to the corner of the room. Assuming that the analysis of the coordinates is correct, theoretically speaking, there are 4 places that the 2019 points to, in other words, for areas that are half a step away from the 4 corners of the room. As he said this, he stomped his feet hard, and the floor under his feet made a few muffled sounds. Anyway, the floor under my feet is solid. Seeing this, Xiao Tan, Bu, and Ub also walked to the other 3 corners of the room. They stomped their feet in similar places to test. Nothing out of the ordinary happened. So, I'm afraid the coordinate theory is wrong. Feng Bujua shrugged. Let's think about other possibilities. For example, 20 minus 19. 2,766 equals 0. 7,234. Maybe this number, I got it. Suddenly, Xiao Ling interrupted Brother Bujua. It's the coordinates. Feng Bujua was taken aback. What do you mean? It's simple multiplication, Xiao Ling answered. 20 multiplied by 19. 2,766 equals 385. 532. Since the two sides of the room are smaller than 510, using large numbers like 385,532, theoretically, there are only 2 coordinates. She stomped her feet. One of them is right under my feet, and the other one. She pointed to the other side of the room, where the coordinates were symmetrical to the one she was standing on, and the other point just happens to correspond to the 2 doors. As she spoke, she walked around the table. Using the width at the bottom of the 2 doors as the base, a perpendicular line extends outward from each point. The 2 lines will intersect at 385,532. She stood still and looked at her teammates. The 5 of them were silent. After a while, Bu said, "No wonder she's Teacher Ju's partner. Even her puzzle-solving skills are so profound." Ub nodded. No wonder she's Teacher Ju's partner. Her calculation ability is so much better than a normal person's. Hey, what does this have to do with him? I'm the one who solved the puzzle. So why are you all praising him? Xiao Ling yelled. Also, when you praise him, it's little by little, but when it comes to me, it's little by little. How come it's such a disgusting term, like little by little? This is just middle school mathematics. What's so profound about it? Where did you get the little by little from? All right, let's not dwell on the details. Feng Bujua walked over to stop Xiao Ling. They're only saying that because they admire you. As he spoke, he knelt down on one knee and took out the knife from his waist. In any case, since we've confirmed the target, things are much easier. He used the handle of the knife to knock on the floor. Based on this sound, there's hope. In the next 2 minutes, Brother Ju took out the WJQ 308 military shovel and used it with Bell's daily knife. Using both of them, they lifted up the floor. There was a digression here. Actually, it was fine if they couldn't solve this puzzle. Theoretically speaking, even if the players couldn't even see the green words on the door, they could still leave the room. The solution was a carpet search. This was a dumb method, but it was undeniable that it worked. In Thriller Paradise's team survival mode, normal, there was often a situation like this. The players came to a place that required them to solve a puzzle to clear, but the team member who was good at solving puzzles had already died. Then, the remaining people would be stuck in a situation where they couldn't solve the puzzle. Those who played Escape Room often had similar experiences. Once they got stuck on a puzzle, it would easily lead to a situation where a group of people sat in the room, playing on their phones, waiting for the time to run out. But in Thriller Paradise, what should one do when faced with such a situation? Experienced players knew that using the dumb method to clear the game, for example, if there was someone who didn't know how to use the find and replace function in a document but wanted to use it, what should he do? The answer, of course, was to use the naked eye to find the content that needed to be replaced one by one and manually delete them one by one. The end result was the same. To put it bluntly, it was just a little more complicated. Okay, it's done. After Feng Bujua lifted up the floorboards, he saw a rectangular box. As he expected, there was a key hidden inside. This time, he picked up the key and walked to the door without the words. I believe this door still won't open. When he said that, he gave it a try, and the key did not match the keyhole. I knew it. Then, Brother Ju walked to the door with the words. As he walked, he said, since the clue came from this door, then the item found from the clue will most likely be used to open this door. He walked to the door and aimed the key at the keyhole again. This time it went in smoothly. Gotcha! Following the sound of metal hitting metal, the door was opened, and the key instantly dissolved into white light and disappeared. Based on my experience, if the key is a consumable item, then the corresponding lock is probably a one-time use item as well. When Feng Bujua spoke, he slowly pushed the door open. In other words, from this moment onward, this door can be opened at will. Ugh! At this moment, a strange moan came from the front of Brother Ju. He immediately raised his head and focused his gaze. What he saw was that in the dim space behind the door, there was a translucent white figure. It was slowly walking over from afar, and that moaning sound was clearly made by it. This is probably a ghost. Facing this creepy scene, Feng Bujua just calmly muttered. He took out his compound anti-gravity catapult and walked forward. However, the moment he turned on the searchlight, the white shadow suddenly disappeared. Under the illumination of the searchlight, the scene behind the door was revealed. It was just a room about the same size as this one, but the place where the white shadow stood just now was clearly 10 meters away. Is it some kind of illusion? As Feng Bujua mumbled to himself, he walked forward into the room. Or this space will undergo some kind of change due to light. Brother Ju's teammates did not see the white shadow clearly, but they all heard the moan. After a few seconds of hesitation, they stepped forward and prepared to follow Brother Ju into the door. But unexpectedly, bang! At this moment, the door closed on its own. Chapter 688. The moment the door closed, the searchlight at the front of the catapult emitted a strange, buzzing sound. Then it started to flicker like it was convulsing. Hey, Hey, this thing has unlimited energy. Feng Bujua mumbled casually. He used the Russian method of repairing the catapult, knocking on the faulty object to restore it to normal, but it was to no avail. At the same time, under the intermittent light, the white shadow that flashed earlier appeared again. Ugh! The moaning started again. The surrounding space also became hazy, distorted, and hideous. This was obviously a horror plot set up by the system. Logically speaking, the first player who walked into the room would be scared to death. But Feng Bujua was not used to this kind of logic. Is this a reenactment of death, or is this some kind of psychic attack? Brother Ju looked calmly at the approaching white shadow. He said calmly, "Speaking of which, this thing is moving slowly. Is it to create some kind of pressure?" He put on a bored expression, yawned, and released a wild ball punch. 10 seconds later, the white shadow finally arrived before Brother Ju, and the image of it became clearer. It was a translucent female ghost in a long white dress. Her exposed face, neck, and hands were all damaged to a certain extent, as if they had been bitten by a beast. She had a pair of round, white eyes that could not be closed. The pair of pupil-less eyes shone with a chilling light in the flickering darkness, and it made one's scalp tingle. "Save me!" The female ghost came before Feng Bujua and uttered her first line other than moaning. "It's so dark here. It's so painful. That's why—" Feng Bujua shook his head and sighed. He said earnestly, "Cataract should be treated as soon as possible. That child is a monster." The female ghost continued, "A demon. A cursed spawn, that child. Who are you referring to?" Feng Bujua caught something and asked tentatively. "No, I can't say its name." At this time, the female ghost's tone revealed obvious fear. "No one can say its name?" Before he finished, a strange rustling sound suddenly appeared and drilled into Feng Bujua's ears. Brother Ju knew that this meant that some kind of foreign object had invaded the space they were in. "Where is it?" Feng Bujua immediately asked. "Is it already here? Save me." The next second, the ghost suddenly raised her voice and wailed. She reached out her hands to strangle Brother Ju's neck. It doesn't hurt like this." Even though Feng Bujua was being shaken by his neck, his face was calm. He muttered, "But there's no need to shake my head back and forth." However, 2 seconds later, Brother Ju's expression changed. This was because he glanced at the game menu and realized that his life points were dropping at a rate of 5% with every shake. F*CK. Feng Bujua saw this and roared. He raised his hand to slap the female ghost. But when he waved his hand, the white shadow dissipated like smoke. Kata! Then the door behind him made continuous vibrations, and a few seconds later, it was opened. When the light from outside the door shone in, the space-time around Brother Ju disappeared. The light on the catapult returned to normal. "Are you okay?" Ruoyu was the first to rush in from outside the door. She practically blurted out this question. "I'm fine." When Feng Bujua answered, he turned to look at his teammates. "Did you guys hear anything from outside?" "No." Xiao Tan, who was the second to enter the room, answered. "The door was only closed for 5 seconds. Ruoyu added, "That's right, I saw you were trapped inside the door, so I came to push it open. It only took a few pushes for it to open." "Oh." Feng Bujua's brows relaxed, and he mumbled, "So that's how it is? What's wrong?" Ruoyu asked, "What did you hear from inside the door?" By then, Xiaoling, Bu, and Ub had entered the room one after another. Therefore, Brother Ju told him the whole story of his conversation with the white ghost. After that, Bu was the first to speak. "Teacher Ju, that the female ghost mentioned, could it be the me that the main mission requires us to find?" "Oh, why do you say that?" Feng Bujua asked. Actually, Brother Ju did not even need to ask this question because he could understand Bu's logic perfectly. But he still asked because he hoped that Bu would explain everything to him so that he would not waste his breath. I think so." Bu did not know that, but he still answered seriously. The shadow that sang the nursery rhyme in the introductory cinematic looked like a child, and the first line of the nursery rhyme was, "Mother, kill me." He paused. Based on my speculation, the female ghost that you met was probably the mother in the nursery rhyme, and the me that we are looking for is the child that sang the nursery rhyme. Based on this hypothesis, the plot should be, Mother killed me, and my spirit returned to kill Mother and torment her spirit. Therefore, Mother asked us to save her. Very good. After Fong Bujua heard that, he added with a smile, I have nothing else to add. Ha. Insignificant skill. Bu was praised by him and immediately smiled. His bright eyes smiled into two slits. Let's stop the analysis of the plot for now. Xiao Ling interrupted their conversation again because she had found another clue. Everyone, take a look at this. At that moment, Xiao Ling was standing in front of the wall that corresponded to the door. She held a flashlight. She had taken one out of her bag after entering the room, and said, As you can see, this room is empty. There is not even a table or an oil lamp. Other than the door that we have opened, there is no other exit. She paused for half a second. Just now, when Captain was telling us about his experience, I had already scanned the room from top to bottom. I only found one area that was relatively abnormal. She paused and pointed to the wall in front of her. Do you see those spots on the wall? Chapter 689. Yes, I saw it. Xiao nodded and asked, What does it mean? I don't know. Xiao Ling replied immediately. Air. Okay. Xiao Tan replied. I thought you had solved the puzzle already. If I'd solved it, I wouldn't have said come and take a look. Xiao Ling narrowed her eyes and looked at Xiao Tan beside her. I would have revealed the answer to the clue directly and then told you how I solved it in front of your shocked eyes. I would have been so proud of myself. Hey, that sounds like you're talking about me. Feng Bujua naturally heard the sarcasm in her words, so he added, Teacher Ju, you do know your place. Xiao Ling glanced at Brother Ju from the corner of her eyes. Her accusation was no doubt a rebuttal to Bu and Ub's earlier comments about her. All right, the whole world knows he's a narcissist, so there's nothing to complain about. Ruo Yu added, Let's focus on solving the puzzle. TSK. Xiao Ling stuck her tongue out at Ruo Yu and made a face. Cousin, you're siding with an outsider. How can you tell that she is siding with an outsider? Feng Bujue's lips twitched. She merely followed your lead and used an even more blatant method to mock me. And she ended the topic like it was the final nail in the coffin. Oh, I get it. Just as they were chatting, Bu, who had been studying the wall, seemed to have noticed something. He said loudly, This is a constellation map, right? From his tone, it sounded like he was not completely sure. So he added, Look closely. The size of these spots are different. Some are the size of sesame seeds. Some are the size of mung beans. And some are so small that you can barely see them with your naked eye. Perhaps, if you look at a group of spots of the same size separately, you can see something like a constellation map. No. Feng Bujua interrupted with a serious face. Even though my knowledge of astronomy is average when it comes to constellations, I'm quite familiar with them, because you chased after Saint Seiya for a while when you were young, Xiao Tan added. Stop wasting time. No one will think you're mute if you don't speak. Brother Ju wanted to show off his knowledge and act cool, but he was instantly exposed by Xiao Tan, so he could only yell at him to ease the awkwardness. Sigh. After Xiao Tan heard that, he shrugged and made a non-committal expression. Xiao Ling, she patted him on his shoulder. Her eyes seemed to say, Well done. Brother Ju cleared his throat. Anyway, according to my observation, even if these spots are divided into multiple groups and observed separately, they can't correspond to a constellation. Wait a minute. At this time, Ruo Yu took a step forward and stared at the wall thoughtfully. I think I've seen this composition somewhere before. As she spoke, she took 2 steps back. Move aside. Let me see the whole thing from a distance. Everyone didn't say much and immediately did as she said. Then, Ruo Yu stood about 3 meters away from the wall, frowning as she pondered. After a full 3 minutes, something suddenly flashed in her eyes, and her expression suddenly relaxed. I understand. Damn, are you serious? Hearing Ruo Yu's words, Feng Bujue was stunned. He could not help but think, I used my superhuman brain speed to analyze the spots, and even took into account the bitmap geometric coordinates, and other factors of the data level. But I still have no clue. You just stood there and looked at it for 3 minutes, and you said you understood? Xiaoling, give me a few bullets filled with gunpowder, Ruo Yu said, and immediately began to act. She took the bullets from Xiaoling and walked to the wall. A few light sounds were heard. This was the sound of Ruo Yu's fingers prying open the bullets. Then she dipped her right middle finger and ring finger in some gunpowder and smeared it on the wall. These spots of different sizes do have different functions, Ruo Yu explained as she smeared the gunpowder. For example, this one marks the frame lines around a larger pattern. This one indicates color filling, and this one indicates a single line segment. As she explained, the pattern on the wall became richer and clearer. Not long after, all the spots were covered by black gunpowder, and a complete painting appeared on the wall. However, the other 5 people still did not understand what it was. Is this some kind of puzzle? Looking at the 6 black, strangely shaped pictures on the wall, 2 of them looked like geometric shapes, and the other 4 looked like the silhouettes of something, but the shape was irregular, Brother Ju asked probingly. Can't you tell? Ruo Yu said, this is bottle, glass, and violin. Huh? Her teammates reacted in unison. Sigh. Ruo Yu sighed deeply and explained, bottle, glass, and violin is a charcoal pastel painting painted by Picasso in 1912. She pointed at the wall and said, if I copied it myself, I wouldn't be able to achieve such a high degree of accuracy. However, with the help of these spots, I created the painting in front of us. Don't worry. I'm guessing that you're the only one in this room who has seen the original work. Even if there are big differences, we won't be able to tell, Feng Bujue said. So, the clues we have now are bottle, glass, and violin, Xiaoling said. There should be Picasso and 1912. Bu added, let's expand our thinking. We can also derive this clue into wine and music. Feng Bujue rubbed his chin and pondered. This is too simple. Ruo Yu had already come to Feng Bujue's side. She grabbed the ladder's lapel and began to wipe her hands. While wiping, she said, from the perspective of comprehensive cubism, this painting does not use the real object as a starting point and decomposes the object into its basic elements. Instead, it uses the basic elements as a starting point and transforms the basic shape and surface into an objective image. By abandoning the painting and brushstrokes, this pattern obtains a more objective reality. These surfaces, on the one hand, show the world outside the painting. On the other hand, they show the unity and independence of the painting's own world through their organic combination. Do you dare to say something that we can understand? Of the 5 listeners, only Brother Ju dared to say something like that after hearing that. Okay. Ruo Yu looked at Brother Ju with a look of disgust. She raised her arm and pointed at the wall. Now, pick up your catapult and see if you can suck the pattern on the wall. Chapter 690. Following Li Ruyu's instructions, Feng Bujue walked to the side of the wall and raised the compound anti-gravity gun in his hand at the blackened tiles on the wall. Then, he activated the suction function of the gun. 1 second later, a soft, buzzing sound announced that the gun had indeed sucked on something. Activating the suction function against air would not cause any reaction. There really is one, Feng Bujue said as he took half a step back and pulled his arm back. Immediately after, a corked wine bottle was pulled out from the shadows of the blackened wall. The item seemed to have traveled from a flat surface to a 3-dimensional world. The shadow on the wall disappeared as well. Wow, that was amazing. Bu gasped with widened eyes. Ab added, The people from Underworld Frontline are indeed not to be trifled with. It was natural for the 2 of them to be amazed. Any player with a bit of skill will be able to tell that the puzzles in these 2 rooms were very difficult. Aside from observation, calculation, association, and reasoning skills, these puzzles also had a high requirement for the player's knowledge. For example, the bottle, glass, and violin on the wall before them. Without a certain level of art-related knowledge and the ability to draw, it would be impossible to reveal it. Even for a monstrous puzzle solver like Feng Bujue, without specific knowledge, he would not be able to see through it. You too flatter me. Ruai, you would not be as smug as Brother Jew. Facing the praise from Bu and Ub, she merely replied calmly, because the system will take into account the information in the player's minds when generating the scenario, and this puzzle is built on a set of information that only I know. That is how I was able to solve it. Her way of expressing herself was brilliant. Her tone was neither servile nor overbearing, and the content of her words was objective and persuasive. Even if she was denying other people's point of view, the other party would not feel offended. In contrast, Brother Jew, who often used logical violence to make people speechless, was obviously on the other end of the spectrum. Anyway, it's a good thing that we can find clues, Feng Buju added. He picked up the bottle and showed the item description to his teammates. Name, bottle, type, plot item, rarity, broken, function. Hold liquid can be taken out of the scenario. No remark. There's nothing special about this glass bottle. The label on the bottle has been rubbed off, and the cork can be removed at will. It's a plot item, and it can't be taken out of the scenario, and the function is clearly stated. After Xiao Tan read the description, he held his chin and said, in other words, we'll need to use this thing to carry some kind of liquid later. I don't think they're going to make us fill the urine, right? Feng Bujua looked like he was thinking about something, and he whispered, after all, we can't relieve ourselves in this game. Ruo Yu glanced at Brother Ju out of the corner of her eyes and said helplessly, is that the first thing that comes to your mind when we talk about liquid? Yes. Feng Bujua admitted it easily. Now that you mention it, it's strange if we talk about body fluid, the first thing that comes to my mind is blood, and before I punch your body fluid out, I suggest you stop talking about that and pull out the other two things inside the wall. Ruo Yu interrupted him. Understood. Feng Bujua smiled and passed the bottle to Yuo Bru, who was standing not far away, and then he walked to the wall again. 1 minute later, Brother Ju pulled it out. Name, glass bottle, type, plot item, rarity, normal, function, hold liquid, can be taken out of the scenario. No. Remark, a very normal cylindrical glass bottle. The inside of the bottle is quite clean. And name, violin, type, plot item, rarity, broken, function, play music, can be taken out of the scenario. No. Remark, even though it looks old, it can still be played normally. Unfortunately, the bow has disappeared. Looks like the puzzle is not over yet. After his teammates read the description of the items, Brother Ju said, just taking these 3 things out of the wall will not change our current situation. As Feng Bujua spoke, he turned back to look at the room next door. For now, we will call the room with the table and oil lamp room A, and the room we are in now room B. He paused for a second, like he was waiting for his teammates to accept this setting. So far, we know that there are 2 keys in room A, and one of them has been used to open the door that connects room A and room B, while the remaining faded bronze key cannot open the other door in room A. And room B does not have any entrance to other areas, and we have not found any other keys. Bu continued Brother Ju's words. The only clue we have has given us 3 items, the bottle, the glass bottle, and the violin. But none of these 3 items can be used to open the door. That's right. As they spoke, Feng Bujua put away the catapult. At that moment, the door that connected the 2 rooms was open, and the light from next door could shine in. Furthermore, the other players were holding lighting devices, so he did not need to use the searchlight. With the glass and violin in his hands, he walked toward room. Based on normal logic, we should return to room A and use these 3 items that we found in room B to find a way to open the other door. Bang. Brother Ju's words were interrupted by the sound of a door closing. He looked at the door that closed on its own with annoyance. This was the 2nd time. He shook his head. Are you kidding me? Again? This time, there were 6 players trapped in room B. However, compared to when Brother Ju was trapped alone, the situation was much better. This time, there was no distortion in the surrounding space, and the lighting devices in the players' hands were working normally. The first to scream was Xiao Tan. Well, he was also the last one. The others did not scream. What are you shouting for? Even Xiao Ling felt embarrassed. She immediately shone the flashlight on Xiao Tan's face. Isn't it just being locked in a room by a ghost? You're already level 40. What are you afraid of? Yeah, it's scarier being locked in a room by a ghost. Xiao Tan replied loudly and honestly. Besides, fear has nothing to do with level. That's right. A person's courage has nothing to do with their level in the game. Feng Bujue turned around solemnly and raised his hand to point at Bu and Ub. Look, they're also scared. It's just that they are not screaming. He was right. At this time, Bu and Ub, one of them had his mouth wide open and was dumbfounded. The other's face was pale and horrified. This is what they call being too scared to speak. Ruoyu commented calmly. Sigh. Actually, you don't have to be so nervous. Feng Bujua looked at the two and said, this should be a very normal event. According to my speculation, the trigger condition is most likely all 6 of us are in room B and have obtained the bottle, glass, and violin. When we reach these 2 conditions, as long as we try to return to room A, we will encounter. Shoo! Suddenly, Ruoyu shushed Brother Ju, interrupted him, and patted him on the shoulder. Brother Ju also understood. He immediately stopped talking and listened attentively. Not long after, the 6 players all heard a low and hoarse singing coming from the room next door. The king and his lackeys snatched the queen from the bed, bound it to her bones. The ocean belongs to us, relying on its power. Where the heart desires, we can go. Yo-ho, let's pull together, raise the flag high. Heave Ho, thieves and beggars, we will never die. After the lyrics were sung 3 times in English, but the players could understand, the voice stopped abruptly. Then there was a click. The tightly shut door once again opened on its own. Main mission triggered. The system prompt sounded. The players opened the game menu and saw a new main mission in the mission column. Obtain the golden key from the dead pirate. Damn it, where's my wine? At the same time, a roar came from behind the door. As the door gradually opened, the players saw a wooden stool beside the table in room A, and a translucent ghost sat on the stool. The ghost was dressed in a brocade robe with gold and silver, and he wore a captain's hat on his head. However, his appearance was extremely unkempt. He had long, messy hair that reached his shoulders and a large beard that resembled a broom. His eyes were sunken, and his skin was rough. Nose hair had already grown out of his nose, and it had fused together with the beard above his lips. Ah, you're finally here. The ghost pirate glanced at the door and said loudly, Quick, bring the wine over. Wine? Feng Bujue's expression shifted. He lowered his head to look. He only had an empty glass and a violin without a bow. Where's the wine? Air. Are you talking about this? Then Ub, who was looking out the door, spoke. He raised the bottle that Brother Ju had given him and waved it at the ghost. For some reason, the originally empty bottle was now full. It was filled with a light yellow liquid. Air. Teacher Ju, should I go over? Ub looked at Brother Ju and asked with fear in his voice. Go ahead. What is there to be afraid of? Feng Bujue said as he passed the glass in his hand to Ub and stepped aside to let him pass. Honestly, the scene before them was indeed nothing to be afraid of. The light in room A was as bright as before, and the ghost pirate did not look that scary. It was just a grayish-white, translucent ghost. It looked like a ghost from an old movie. Oh, okay. Ub did not hesitate. After answering, he took the bottle and glass and went to the table. Perhaps Brother Ju's tone and demeanor gave him confidence because Ub's terror points dropped immediately. He told himself internally, Teacher Ju is right. What is there to be afraid of? If I'm afraid of something like this, I might as well go play Ghost Horse Fairy OL. This game is made up by me. It does not exist. While emboldening himself in his heart, he came in front of the ghost pirate. This is your wine. After saying that, Ub put the bottle and cup on the table and quickly took a step back, looking at the ghost pirate warily. The ghost pirate glanced at him and pouted, but he did not say anything. Then, the ghost pulled out the cork from the bottle and started to drink by himself. Seeing that there was no danger, the other 5 players passed through the door and returned to room A. After they entered, the first thing Brother Ju did was to whisper into Ub's ear, By the way, the liquid that suddenly appeared from the bottle, could it be yours? Of course not. Ub's lips twitched as he replied, I have no idea when the liquid appeared. In any case, before the door closed, the bottle was still empty. I noticed the liquid inside the bottle after the quest announcement. Oh, Phone Bujua nodded and thought to himself, this is Brother Zune helping us, isn't it? He was not wrong. The wine inside the bottle was indeed made by the Count of Script. In the original plot, the players were supposed to fill the bottle with blood for the ghost pirate to drink. Thankfully, with Brother Jew's help, it saved them a lot of trouble. Of course, even without Brother Jew's help, it would not have been a big problem. With the humanoid supply station, getting some blood was just a matter of minutes. He had a consumable called the all-purpose blood plasma in his bag. If the ghost pirate wanted to drink fresh blood, he could just let the fatty bleed a few ounces of blood. After all, he could still replenish the ghost pirate's blood through infusion. Burp. About 2 minutes later, the ghost pirate finished half the bottle. He hiccuped and raised his eyes to scan the players before finally stopping on Brother Jew. Drinking alone is too boring. You, give me some music. Huh. After Phone Bujua heard that, he was startled for half a second. Then he realized this was caused by him holding the violin. Therefore, Brother Jew struggled internally and turned to look at his teammates. His teammates looked at him doubtfully, expectantly, and gloatingly. Unfortunately, no one volunteered to stand up for him. Sigh, so be it. After giving it some thought, Phone Bujua sighed. He put on a face that said, I'm going to give it my all. He walked to the ghost pirate and asked, what do you want to hear? Of course, something that pirates like us would listen to. The ghost pirate replied in a rough tone. Do you want to play an opera? Understood. Phone Bujua picked up the violin calmly and got into position. He rested his chin on the back of his neck, plucked the strings with his left hand, and raised his right hand. I can't play without a bow. So can I play it? Fine. Whatever. The ghost pirate poured himself another glass of wine and replied impatiently. Phone Bujua shrugged. He tilted his head, plucked the strings with his right hand, and started to play. Thump, 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 thump. The sound of a string was rhythmic, rising and falling. It really did seem like it. No wonder he is Teacher Jew. Even his playing is so deep. Boo's eyes lit up with admiration again. No wonder he is Teacher Jew. He knows a little more than a normal person. Ub also praised. TSK. It is just a very common tune. Xiao Ling added. Xiao Tan said with confusion. How strange. The violins sound like a pipa. This is the first time I've heard that he can do this. Ruoyu was also surprised. Just as everyone was discussing Phone Bujua's musical talent, something scary happened. After Brother Jew plucked the strings for a while, he opened his mouth to sing. Touch above Big Sister's head. Her hair is as black as ink, like the dark clouds that cover the sky. Io like the dark clouds that cover the sky. Puffed. The phantom pirate spat out the wine in his mouth. Brother Jew's 5 teammates were frozen to the spot from shock. If there was a word to describe this state, it would be petrification. What the F*CK is this? The phantom pirate roared in both shock and anger. Phone Bujua replied nonchalantly, 18 touches. I asked you to play a song that pirates often listen to, and you gave me this? The phantom pirate asked, then what do you want to listen to? Brother Jew asked, a nautical song. You don't even know this? How did you get on my ship? The phantom pirate shouted. The ghost pirate shouted. It seemed that he thought that he was still alive and was staying on his ship. The song of us pirates should symbolize freedom, determination, fearlessness. Okay, I understand. Phone Bujua leisurely adjusted the strings, picked a new tune, and sang at the top of his voice. The river flows to the east, the stars in the sky, join the Big Dipper. Hey, join the Big Dipper. Life and death, friends, a bowl of wine. Say go, let's go, you have it. I have it, we have it all. Hey, we have it all. In water and fire, we don't turn back. What the F*CK? The phantom pirate was shocked. He stared at Brother Jew with his eyes wide open and asked very seriously, if it was a few years ago, I would stab you to death, believe it or not. Then what do you want? Feng Bujue replied with a look of a dead pig that was not afraid of boiling water. You say, what do you want to listen to? Just pick whatever you want. Although I don't know much, I can still play the popular ones, like Where Dare I Ask, The Ocean's Roar, Sailor, Bang. At this time, the door connecting room A and room B closed again. But this time, it didn't close by itself, but Ruo Yu slammed it open. She slammed the door and said in a cold tone, when he's done with his crazy outburst, call me. Chapter 691. Brother Ju's immoral behavior did not last long, because the ghost pirate could not stand it anymore and stopped him, giving up on the idea of listening to music. After the strumming and singing stopped, Ruo Yu came back from the next room. As soon as she entered the room, she looked at Brother Ju with disdain and said, Are you done being crazy? Ah, almost. Feng Bujue replied with a smile. To be able to use this method to make an NPC withdraw a request. That's also a kind of ability, Xiaoting commented. Well, kid, I understand your talent in music. At this time, the ghost pirate said to Brother Ju, It's my fault. I shouldn't have mentioned the word music in front of you. He paused for a few seconds and poured himself another glass of wine. Why don't you tell a joke or something? You don't have a problem with that, right? I have serious doubts about that. Ruo Yu narrowed her eyes and said in a timely manner. Feng Bujue ignored his teammate's sarcasm and looked at the ghost pirate and asked, I can, but what do I get in return? At this point, he felt that it was time to raise some conditions. Huh? What do you want? The ghost pirate asked. That's not the point. The point is, what do you give me? Feng Bujue continued. You're right. The ghost pirate picked up the wine glass. I can give you. He hesitated for a moment and drank a mouthful of wine. A key. What else? Feng Bujue asked again. Nothing else. The ghost pirate replied rudely. If you want to add something else, I can give you a few slaps in the face. What do you think? Is that so? Feng Bujue mumbled under his breath. He thought to himself, should I take out the bell of Jin Gang and see if there is any value left on this NPC? After a few seconds of consideration, he gave up the idea. He felt that it was a waste to use the special effect of the bell of Jin Gang here. Mr. Pirate, do you know the king? A few seconds later, Brother Ju suddenly changed the topic. It seemed that he had already started telling his joke. Of course, the ghost pirate replied. George II, the great king. His expression turned strange, and there was bitterness in his tone. It was his fleet that destroyed my ship, killed my subordinates, and stole my treasure. When he said that, his transparent body flickered in and out of existence, and his eyes became weirder and weirder. Ha! I seem to remember now. He put down the wine glass and lifted his head to look at Brother Ju. I'm already dead, right? Yes, Feng Bujue said bluntly. Ah, no wonder I don't feel anything after drinking this wine, the ghost pirate muttered. Since you know the king and have such a grudge against him, that makes things easier. Feng Bujue continued from where he left off. Let's talk about George II. What? Do you want to tell a king's joke? The ghost pirate continued. I don't think I'll be amused by that. Feng Bujue ignored him and continued. For most kings, to be able to suddenly die in an unexpected situation may be a kind of luck. This is much more dignified than being killed by enemies, relatives, or servants. They don't have to be tortured by illness for a long time, and they don't have to worry about their temperament changing due to old age. What are you trying to say? The ghost pirate asked. However, sometimes there are some strange situations that cause them to lose this dignity before they die. Feng Bujue continued. On the morning of October 25th, 1760, King George II, who had been suffering from constipation for a long time, suddenly died of a dissecting aneurysm due to excessive force when he defecated. He spread out his hands. This unfortunate king of the British Empire died on the toilet. When he finished, the room was silent. A few seconds later, the ghost pirate burst into uncontrollable laughter. This is the most ridiculous, joke I've ever heard. In fact, I'm telling the truth, Feng Bujue continued expressionlessly. The ghost pirate laughed wildly again. I can't. Ha ha. I'm going to die. Ha ha ha. He laughed so hard that it was as if his lungs were about to explode. After a while, the guy finally caught his breath, but he still couldn't stop the smile on his face. Oh, this feels so good. He took out a key from his pocket and put it on the table. Take it, kid. The moment the key left the ghost pirate's fingertips, it turned from a translucent shadow into a physical object. After the pirate handed over the key, he became more and more transparent until he completely disappeared at the last moment. There was still an unscrupulous smile on his face that a scoundrel should have. Current quest completed. When a system said that the bottle, glass, and violin all dissolved into white light and disappeared. Fong Bujue took 2 steps forward and picked up the key left behind by the pirate. Item name: Pirate's Gold Key. Item type: consumable quality, normal function. Open pirate's treasure chest can be taken out of the scenario. No remark. The owner of this key was obviously fond of gold and silver, but before he could enjoy the wealth that he plundered, he was buried at sea. Brother Ju quickly showed the item description to his teammates. About 10 seconds later, Bu was the first to speak. That's not right, is it? If this key is used to open a treasure chest, then... He pointed at the door in room that had not been opened yet. How do we open that door? Kacha. A soft sound answered his question. Just as everyone was looking at the item description, the door was opened from the other side by someone, perhaps a human, perhaps not. Even though it was only for 2 seconds, in those 2 seconds, the 6 players clearly saw a pale, slender hand with red fingernails holding the door frame. When the door was opened to the width of a palm, the hand retreated back into the darkness behind the door. Ju. Brother Ju. Xiao Tan's chin quivered as he spat out. You. Look. We're here. Feng Bujue replied weakly. It'd be weird if we didn't see it. As he spoke, he put the pirate's gold key into his pocket and strode toward the door. At a time like this, don't hesitate due to fear. Chase after it as fast as you can. Perhaps you'll find something unexpected. No wonder your teacher, Ju. Your analysis is so deep. You looked at Brother Ju and said, No wonder your teacher, Ju. You're braver than a normal person. Ub added. This time, their praises hit the nail on the head. If there was anything Feng Bujue could not compare to a normal person, it was undoubtedly he was fearless. Wow, this room is quite spacious. On the other side, Feng Bujue had already reached the door. He turned on the searchlight and pushed the door open. Then, let's name this room Room C. The Room C that Brother Ju mentioned was bigger than the previous Room A and Room B combined. Based on his visual estimation, it should be more than 100 square meters. The room was rectangular in shape, and the walls and floor were also made from wood. However, the room had more furniture than the previous 2 rooms. After entering the room, Feng Bujue used the searchlight to scan the room to observe the size and layout of the room. Then, he started to observe more closely. There's quite a lot of furniture in this room, Brother Ju said as he held up the searchlight. Long sofa, coffee table. There's even a CRT television on the coffee table. While he was talking, the other 5 also turned on the lights and followed him in. Let me see. A closet, a low cupboard, 2 standing lamps. Feng Bujue read out whatever he saw. He sounded relaxed. A wilted bonsai, a piano, a collapsed bookshelf, and, he seemed to have seen something, and then he laughed. There's a dead body here. Chapter 692. Do not touch anything in the room. After Feng Bujue saw the dead body, he immediately turned back to warn them. Based on the nature of this scenario, perhaps the next part will be a crime scene investigation type of puzzle solving. So, it is better if we keep the crime scene intact. I say, Brother Bujue, is this even necessary to investigate? Xiaoten raised a flashlight and looked at the dead body that was pinned under the bookshelf. He said, looks like he was killed by the falling bookshelf. Brother Xiaotan, you are oversimplifying things. Mr. Bu, who was aiming to be a famous detective, told Xiaotan confidently, when investigating a crime scene, the most important thing is not to be fooled by the surface. He shone his flashlight on the dead body and added, "Look closely. Underneath the dead body, there's several books as well." He was right. There were several exposed book corners, indicating that there were at least 2 or 3 books underneath the dead body. If the bookshelf fell and killed her, how did the books get underneath her body? Bu asked, "Isn't that suspicious?" "Of course not." Once Bu said that, Feng Bujue answered directly, "In a situation like this, I can immediately come up with 2 logical hypotheses." He raised one finger and continued, 1. When the bookshelf fell, there were probably books that fell from it. Since the speed of the books falling is faster than the bookshelf falling, a few of them just happened to fall underneath the dead body. He paused for half a second before raising his second finger. 2. As you can see, this dead body was lying face down. In other words, when the bookshelf fell, she was facing away from the bookshelf. Considering that the dead body is female, we can make this assumption. Before she died, she just took down a few books from the bookshelf, hugged the books to her chest, and turned to leave. At that moment, the bookshelf fell. Wow, no wonder you are Teacher Ju. Your investigation of the crime scene is so deep. Bu's shining eyes shone with admiration again. No wonder you are Teacher Ju. Your speed of deduction is also faster than normal. Ub added, Hey, I was the one who said killed by the bookshelf first, right?" Xiao Tan laughed drily. "When I said that, it was too simple, but when Brother Ju said it, there was more to it, because you only saw the surface," Feng Bujua said darkly, "and Bu saw the hidden message underneath the surface." He paused for a moment. "As for me, I've seen the deeper truth reflected by the information hidden under the surface, and the truth just happens to match the appearance, right?" Xiao Ling interjected. "Yes," Feng Bujua answered. "Xiao Tan and I look like we agree, but there is a difference. He knows the truth but doesn't know the reason behind it, while I know the reason behind it." "You really know how to flatter yourself," Rainey said coldly. "You flatter me." Brother Ju admitted it shamelessly and changed the topic. "In any case, we should focus our attention on the room before us." He used the searchlight in his hand to guide the group's gaze as he said, "Other than the furniture and dead bodies, the more interesting thing should be." The light of the searchlight shone at the other end of the room. That door. At that moment, Feng Bujue's searchlight was shining on a dark gray metallic door. There was a pirate symbol painted on the door, a skull with 2 cross scimitars at the bottom. "Why does it feel so weird?" Xiao Tan said. "The door is made of metal, but the walls on both sides are made of wood. This has nothing to do with the materials." Xiao Ling sighed helplessly. "If the system forbids us to break something, even if it is made of paper, we cannot break it." "You are right," Feng Bujue said as he walked towards the door. "Even if the walls are made of paper, you have to open this door to get through." Before he finished, he had already walked to the door and reached for the doorknob. "Please enter the 6-digit password." The system prompt immediately sounded in his ears, and a password input menu popped up in front of him. At the same time, something strange happened. The dead body that was pressed under the bookshelf suddenly moved. That scared the rest of the people in the room. Xiaodan almost screamed again. While everyone was still in shock, the dead body began to sing softly, frowny face 1, 2, 3, start. 4, 5, 6, walk vertically. Let's sing the pirate's song. Walk into the river that leads to the treasure. After singing, the dead body began to rot rapidly and emitted a nauseating stench. Not long after, a corpse that was considered complete turned into a pool of pus that was wrapped in clothes. This is easy. Facing the stench that had not yet dissipated, Feng Bujue did not care. He was only concerned about the puzzle. "I can open the door now." As he said that, he entered the 6 letters T and W in the menu. In the next second, the door with the pirate's mark really did open. "What's going on?" Ub was stunned. "Oh, it's like this," Feng Bujue explained. "When I touched the doorknob, the system voice told me that I needed to enter a 6-digit password to open the door." He glanced at the pus on the ground. Then, the dead body gave an unusually obvious hint. "So I entered TSATAW, and the door opened." Xiaotan was still confused. Where did these 6 letters come from? Feng Bujue turned to look at him and said, "Do you still remember the pirate's song from earlier?" Hearing this, Xiao Ling was the first to react. "Oh, I get it now." She had a good memory. With Brother Ju's reminder, she understood the mystery. In the pirate song earlier, there was a clue to this puzzle. Leaving aside the chorus of Cho, the first line, "The king and his men," starts with it, and the second line, "Steal the queen from her bed," starts with this, and so on. Then there are, and finally the sixth line, where we will be, has 6 letters. Oh, no wonder the song was sung in English, Bu said with realization. As for the 1, 2, 3, start 4, 5, 6, go vertically, it is a hint for us to decipher the pirate song. And after deciphering it, we will be able to reach. When Feng Bujue said that, he leaned forward to push open the door. The river that leads to the treasure. Following his words, a golden ray of light poured in from the door. Outside the metal door with the pirate's symbol, there was a 3-meter-wide golden river. The river flowed slowly, creating a gurgling sound. The bottom of the river was covered with gold, silver, and jewels. The jewels dyed the water gold, and it glowed brightly. At that moment, the Count of Scrip's voice suddenly appeared in Brother Ju's mind. "Don't be in such a hurry to leave. There's a hidden chest in this room, and there's a skill inside it." After Brother Ju met up with his teammates, this was the first time he heard the Count of Scrip's voice. "Hello, can you hear me?" Feng Bujue repeated that in his mind. He wanted to see if he could communicate with the Count of Script in his mind. But after he finished, he waited for a few seconds, and there was no answer. It looked like the answer was no. "Listen, Feng Bujue, I cannot talk to you like this for too long, so I will try my best to tell you as much as I can." After about 10 seconds, the Count of Script continued. "My current state is similar to barely maintaining my rationality in a dream. Once I let my guard down, this state will be interrupted. I cannot hear the voice from your side, and even the image is blurry. You don't need to try to communicate with me. That is a waste of effort. In any case, at certain moments, I will actively contact you to give you some hints. And you'd better not disappoint me." This sentence echoed in Brother Ju's mind, and only he could hear it. Feng Bujue did not plan to tell his teammates about his deal with the Count of Script because he knew there was another powerful presence in this mental world. At that moment, it had to be observing the players' every move. If Brother Ju told them about his cooperation with the Count of Script, it would be alerted, and that would make Brother Ju's mission harder. Therefore, after the Count of Script finished, Feng Bujue turned around quietly to look at his teammates. "Based on the situation before us, there shouldn't be any murder mystery in this room. The dead body is just a hint." His eyes scanned room C again. "But this room is so big, and there are so many things here. There might be some hidden items. Why don't we all search for it?" "I have no problem with that." Ruoyu instantly agreed with Brother Ju's suggestion. Xiao Ling and Xiao Ten looked at each other for 2 seconds before the former shrugged. "There is no time limit for this scenario, so let's search." Bu and Ub followed Brother Ju's lead, so naturally, they had no problem with that. Therefore, the 6 of them split up and started a carpet search of room C. 10 minutes passed silently. Just as the group was losing their patience, only Feng Bujue knew that there was a 100% chance of finding a skill card in this room. But for the others, this was just a blind search. Xiao Tan suddenly said loudly, "Hey, guys, I think I found something." Hearing this, the expressions of his teammates were all shaken. The 5 quickly gathered around Xiao Tan, wanting to see what he had found. Seeing that his teammates had gathered, Wang Tanji took out the hidden blade on Altair's touch and quickly cut open the television before him. With the flashlights shining on it, the players realized that the so-called television was just an empty shell. Inside the lifelike shell was a safe. This is the first time I've seen such an anti-theft method." Feng Bujue touched his chin and said, "Compared to the method of hiding in the wall and hanging a painting in front of it, this method of hiding in the interior of an old-fashioned television is obviously more advanced. Brother Xiao Tan, you can even find this." "That's amazing," Bu said to Xiao Tan. "Ha, I was just lucky." Xiao Tan replied honestly, Just now, I just wanted to move the television away to see if there were any clues on the surface of the coffee table. I didn't expect such a small television to be so ridiculously heavy that I almost smashed my own foot. I felt that something was wrong, so I took a closer look and realized that this television was very abnormal. Logically speaking, the casing of an old-fashioned CRT television would have some ventilation holes for cooling, but the casing of this television was airtight. I immediately thought, is there something hidden in here? So I cut a small hole with my hidden blade and shone the flashlight inside. After playing for so long, I finally saw you solve a puzzle. At this time, Xiaoling took half a step forward and patted Xiao Tan's shoulder, revealing a very gratified expression. Keep up the good work. Hey, don't make me sound so miserable, Xiao Tan replied with narrowed eyes. Because I always have to line up with a group of godlike people like you, so I don't have the opportunity to solve puzzles. He was telling the truth. It was not that he didn't know how to solve puzzles, but every time he solved half of a puzzle, sometimes less than half, a teammate like Brother Ju or Xiao Ling would jump out and directly announce the correct answer and puzzle-solving process. In this case, he really didn't have the opportunity or the need to perform. Okay. I'll let you play next time. Good boy. Xiao Ling simply put her hand on Xiao Tan's head, as if she was coaxing a pet. Seeing someone set off a flashbang before him. How could the single brother up just sit there and do nothing? He cleared his throat, took 2 steps forward, and squatted down before the safe. He stared at it without blinking. This series of actions allowed him to successfully chase the couple out of his sight. Then, Ub said in a low voice, "Leave the job of opening the safe to me." As he said that, he took out a hearing aid from his backpack. "I'm already familiar with this." Good luck." Feng Bujua used this sentence to announce his decision to not do anything. None of his teammates knew that several seconds ago, the Count of Script had already explained the way to open the safe in Brother Ju's mind. The password to the safe was hidden inside a book of different size on the bookshelf, and the key to the safe was split into 2 parts, buried inside the 2 withered bonsai plants. However, Feng Bujua did not use the method provided by the Count of Script to open the safe and chose to play dumb. There were 2 reasons for that. 1, it was to make it lower its guard. Secondly, this kind of reward item could be unlocked outside the scenario. If Ub could open the safe without the use of the key or password, then so be it. What was so bad about letting his teammate gain more skill points? Click. After 3 minutes of work with the aid of the medical tool, hearing aid, and the title ability, Magnetic Finger, Ub successfully opened the safe. It's done. Ub wiped the sweat from his forehead and stood up. He did not reach for the skill card inside the safe, but took 2 steps back to allow his teammates to inspect the attribute of the card. From this, one could see that Ub was a well-mannered player. Item name: Cell Strengthening Surgery Skill Card Property. Active Permanent Skill Type. Medic Effect: Increase the physical power of one of your teammates, excluding yourself, by 2 times. Cooldown: 3 hours. Duration: 5 minutes. Consumption: 20% of maximum stamina points. 10 milliliters of normal saline, injected through a syringe. Prerequisite: Medic A remark: Don't worry, we don't need you to cut your teammates open, and we don't need you to do it in a sterile place. The person who designed this skill is a programmer, not a doctor, so you only need to grab a random syringe and insert it into your teammate's arm. That is the benefit of the game, isn't it? Chapter 693. You can use it. Feng Bujua looked at the description of the skill card and turned to tell Ub, "None of us need a medic skill." "Yes, you're the only one in our team that's suitable for that," Xiao Tan added. "Suitable for that." Ub repeated the phrase and then complained, "You make it sound like I'm an excavator student." Hearing that, Feng Bujua got excited. He opened his mouth and said, "Then, here comes the question. Let's see who dares to ask." Ruoyu's voice was as cold as the wind. As expected, once the heroine finished, no one dared to answer Brother Ju. "Sigh, just pretend I didn't say anything." Feng Bujua shrugged. Keep the skill card. We are ready to depart." Then, He turned to walk toward the door that was already open and led to the river. Outside the metal door was the river. There was no bank or stairs to slow it down. Thankfully, the river was not rushing, and the water level was about half a meter lower than the threshold, so the water did not rush into the house. At most, there would be some splashes. On the other side of the river, or the bank 3 meters away, there was a stone wall. It was a meandering stone wall that seemed to have no end. The height of the stone wall was unknown, but it was at least 30 meters high. Places higher than that, due to the lack of light, it was impossible to see clearly. If one poked their head out from behind the door and looked left and right, the players would realize that there was no difference between this side of the river and the other side of the river. The only difference was that there was a metal door embedded into the stone wall. Main quest triggered. The moment Brother Jew poked his head out of the door, the system announcement came. Opening the quest tab, there was a new main quest. Follow the river and find the pirate's treasure. Bu looked outside the door and asked Brother Jew a very realistic question. Teacher Jew, don't tell me we have to swim. So what if we do? Fong Bujue replied. It's just a swim, not a pot of oil. Besides, we don't need to swim. He pointed at the opposite wall. Everyone is level 40. Relying on the walls that are 3 meters apart and perpendicular to the ground, we can move by bouncing back and forth. That's right. It's very easy. Ruoyu immediately expressed that moving in this way wasn't too stressful. If that's the case, I could do it too, Xiaoling said. It doesn't matter to me. As long as the speed is not lower than 10 kilometers per hour, I can walk directly on the wall. Xiao Tan's title, Gale Nightmare, hadn't changed, so his title ability, Flying Nightmare, was still there. However, I'll leave black fire footprints wherever I go. It's best if you guys don't walk on the same level as me, in case you get burnt. As for me, Fong Bujue placed his hands behind his head and looked at his teammates with a relaxed expression. I can walk or stand on the surface of the water at will. There's no pressure at all. Underworld frontline. Everyone is so skilled. Ub's weak voice was filled with deep admiration. I will try my best to catch up to everyone. I will try my best to catch up to everyone as well. Sweat rolled down Boo's round face. I'll use the swimming method. I say, you should be able to float on water, right? Fong Bujue mocked with a thoughtful expression. Huh? Teacher Ju, how did you know? Bu asked with surprise. Brother Ju was just mocking Boo's body size. He didn't expect it to be true. Really? Yes, Bu replied. I have a skill that allows me to adjust the amount of hydrogen in my body to change my weight. No way. Fong Bujue's lips twitched. Bu added, when necessary, I can float like a balloon or float on the surface of the water. Then, you plan to float on the surface of the water and use the turtle style to catch up to us? Fong Bujue asked. Yes. Bu nodded. Don't worry, Teacher Ju. I've tried this in other scenarios. If you ride the current, this method is not slow. Okay, Fong Bujue replied rather awkwardly. Then he turned around and was the first to walk out of the metal door. With the help of the legendary shoes, Void Walk, Brother Ju could do this with ease. He stood calmly on the surface of the water and waited for his teammates to come out. Bu was the second to come out. His face was facing down, and he fell directly into the water with a splash. He really floated up. 2 seconds later, Bu, who had steadied himself, raised his head, swayed his limbs, and floated down the river like he was paddling on a surfboard. Teacher Ju, I'll be going first. When Bu floated past Fong Bujue, he didn't forget to raise his head to greet his idol. Okay, we'll catch up soon. When Fong Bujue replied, he felt like he had been transported back in time. For a moment, he felt like he was a character in a fairy tale, like a pelican or something, and Bu was a turtle that passed by him. We're going as well. Ruoyu's one sentence pulled Brother Ju back from his daze. As she spoke, she suddenly leaped over the threshold and landed on the opposite stone wall. Her toes tapped lightly on the wall, and her body shot out like a swallow. In just a few back and forth, she had already caught up with Bu in front of her. It could truly be said that she was flying like a duck, treading on the waves with subtle steps. Then Xiaoling, Xiao Tan, and Nub also leaped out from the metal door and started to walk down the wall. Humph! There has to be some kind of conspiracy behind this riverside quest. Seeing that his companions had moved on, Fong Bujua took his time to catch up to them like he was jogging after a meal. After all, with me covering the back, I do want to see what kind of trick you have up your sleeve. At the same time, at the detective club, the Count of Script, who had morphed into an owl, stood at the top of a bookshelf. With a constipated expression, he told the pig-headed man before him, "You'd better not come and disturb me. I'm having a headache. I'm just here to give you something. Take it and I'll leave." Oink lifted his head to look at his brother. "Since when did you become a postman?" the Count of Script asked. "Humph!" Oink scoffed. "If I recall correctly, it started when I gave Fong Bujua a weapon, so it's my fault?" the Count of Script asked. "Of course," Oink replied. "I used to be a butcher, a chef, a killer, and a manager, and now I've become a delivery man. If you don't like it, you can quit," the Count of Script said. "That's easy for you to say," Oink scoffed. "Do you think I can stand before the leader of the demons, look into his eyes, and say, 'I'm not doing this, you can find someone else'? Huh, if I say that, what do you think you will do next?" He paused. "Oh no, you won't wait for 1 second. When I said you, or find, he already made his move." He shook his head and said, "He will tear my stomach open, tear off every piece of meat there, and then take it and stew it with Medusa's hair into a pot of pork stew with noodles. Yes, that's what he will do." "Fine, fine. I get it," the Count of Script said. "What is it? Give it to me." "Wait a minute," Oink said. Oink said as he turned around and grabbed a kitchen knife from his waist. He tore open a dimensional rift. He was one of the few NPCs who had the ability to travel through space indiscriminately. The only other NPCs who had the ability to do so was Bugs Bunny. "Ugh, damn it. I bet this thing weighs at least a ton," he grumbled as he pulled out a large box from the rift. "What's inside the box?" the Count of Script asked. "Can't you see it?" Oink asked. "Why would I ask you if I can see it?" the Count of Script said. "Didn't I tell you? I'm having a headache." He raised one of his wings to touch his head. "Something is messing with my brain, and it's creating a bad influence on me. Temporarily, I can't see the sequence of truth." "Oh." Oink's expression relaxed. "No wonder your tone is so weird. I thought you were a fake. All right, tell me what's inside the box," the Count of Script said. "Now that you're done here, I still have other things to do." For the Count of Script, helping Fong Bujua chase away the uninvited guest in his brain was the most important thing. "Oh," Oink said. Oink said, "The demon leader purposely asked me to bring this to you." His expression suddenly turned serious. SCP-762, Item Code, SCP-762, Item Classification, Safe Description. SCP-762 is a torture device similar to the infamous Iron Maiden of Nuremberg. It was recovered in the year 19 redacted, and it was placed inside a box in the basement of Austria's redacted. Any personnel placed inside SCP-762 will enter a state of suspended animation. When the subject is inside SCP-762, they will no longer need food, water, or even air. At the same time, when the subject is inside SCP-762, they appear to be immune to the effects of diseases and wounds, including the large wounds caused by SCP-762 itself. Even so, the subject will retain consciousness, and they will describe the experience as excruciating. Once the subject is removed from SCP-762, all the wounds caused by the device will be healed instantly. Since all physiological functions other than consciousness will be suspended inside SCP-762, the people placed inside it will not age. At that moment, the Count of Script's appearance changed. He turned into a 2-liter bottle of Coke. It looked like he was trying to use this to hide his reaction, mainly his expression. What is the meaning of this? There shouldn't be anyone else in there, right? "No, it's empty," Oink replied. Oink replied, "The Devil Lord said that you will need this soon. He also said that, after you're done with it, remember to return it to him." At this point, Oink seemed to have realized something. "Wait, you said that there is a thing messing with your mind?" All right, you don't need to ask anymore. The Count of Script turned the bottle and replied, I already know what the demon leader means. He paused for 2 seconds and said, I already know who the person who sneaked in my mind is. Back to Brother Bujue's group. The 6 players followed the current for about 10 minutes, but the scenery before them had not changed. What was reflected in their eyes was the golden river, the riverbed covered in treasures, the boundless stone walls, and the distant and deep darkness above their heads. After this period of time, the distance between the players had increased. This was unavoidable, because other than Feng, Bujue, and Bu, the other 4 did not have the ability to stop moving. Of course, if they wanted to, they could just jump into the water. But, generally speaking, no one would do that unless they encountered some special circumstances. Thus, such a situation had occurred. Xiao Tian moved along the wall at a speed of 10 kilometers per hour. Without realizing it, he was already at the front. The second person chasing after him was Ruo Yu. Xiao Ling was third, and the fourth person was Bu, who was drifting along the river. Who was fifth, was a player who specialized in medic after all. He was not that good at physical skills. Even though it was simple jumping on the wall, it was not easy for him. Compared to Ruo Yu and Xiao Ling, who used the same method, lagged far behind. The one at the back of the group was still Feng Bujue. He still followed the philosophy of covering the back and ran slowly. By then, Brother Ju had basically guessed what was going to happen. Chapter 694. Humph, you're finally here. When Feng Bujue said that, a sparrow flew down from the darkness above him and slowly stopped before him. Mother killed me. Father ate me. Brothers and sisters climbed down from the table, picked up my bones buried in a cold stone tomb. An emotionless, childish voice came out from the sparrow and entered Feng Bujue's ears. I already know all that. You don't have to repeat it. Feng Bujue stopped moving and raised his eyes to look at the sparrow. Can you tell me something new? Like, where's this stone tomb? And after we find your body, what do you want us to do with it? You will never find my body, the sparrow replied, because all of you will die here. Before it finished, something unexpected happened. Chi chi chi. At this moment, the sound of shattering suddenly rang out, rising and falling one after another. Cracks appeared on the stone walls on both sides of Brother Ju. Inside the cracks, black stamens poked out. The flowers bloomed into roses, and the air was heavy with fragrance. The petals fell and turned into dust. Black roses bloomed all over the stone wall in an instant. The scattered petals and pollen were like mist and clouds, poignant and beautiful. However, in Feng Bujue's eyes, this beauty was dangerous and fatal. A pollen that will lower one's life points once it enters the respiratory system. Feng Bujue's eyes flickered with a dark glow as he mumbled, "This kind of gas attack is quite troublesome." As he spoke, he took out the oxygen pipe from his inventory and placed it in his mouth. "I have to hurry to check on the others." "You want to leave?" the sparrow said coldly. "It's not that easy." Its voice was young, but there was a murderous intent in its tone. "Father, stop him." After the sparrow said that, it flew back into the shadows. The next second, the river several meters before Brother Ju exploded, and a column of water shot into the sky. The white stone wall, the black roses, and the colorless river reflected the golden light. With this strange scene as a backdrop, a large shadow rose from the mud at the bottom of the river. It pushed aside the gold and silver that covered the riverbed and came to the surface. It was a male monster in a white shirt and suspenders. He was barefooted and floated in the air. His whole body was swollen, and the knotted muscles almost tore through his shirt. And the most bloated part was undoubtedly his head. His head was ridiculously large, and his entire face was distorted by the swelling. He could no longer close his mouth, because a piece of bloody flesh was stuffed in his mouth. "Oh, Father has become a monster as well." After Feng Bujue saw the monster, he grinned because of the pipe in his mouth. He could only speak with one side of his mouth, and said, "If I remember correctly, in the fairy tale The Song of the Juniper Tree, which is related to my mother has killed me. Father and sister didn't die. Just as Brother Jew was thinking, the monster had already swayed its body, as if it was walking, and approached through the air. As it walked, it made a strange sound, as if it wanted to say something. Phone Bujua looked at the monster, thought for a few seconds, and said, I don't know if you are being controlled, or if you have become a real monster. But, forgive me, I don't have time to tangle with you. Before he finished his words, his body moved. In the blink of an eye, a strong wind and spiritual energy rose. Phone Bujua used the Jeppo, and his body was like a dragon. There was no hesitation in his eyes, and he rushed straight toward the monster in front of him. The moment he tilted his body, black energy covered his hands. This was the precursor to the activation of the evil king flame, Purgatory. Whoosh! In just a moment, blood spurted out. But on the river filled with black mist, a blazing spiritual energy tore a path, and a purple figure rushed forward like lightning, tearing the enemy in front of it into pieces of charred flesh. Sparrow, a monster of this level can't stop me. After Phone Bujua finished this charge, he continued to move forward, running wildly on the water. He did not look back to see if the monster was completely dead, because in this moment of racing against time, there was no extra time for him to finish off the monster. As expected, it's not just near me. The entire river is now covered with black roses. While Phone Bujua ran wildly, he also observed the environment and calmly thought, humans can hold their breath for about 30 seconds to 2 minutes. But as a level 40 player whose physical fitness is much higher than ordinary people, I should be able to hold my breath for about 5 minutes. Bang, bang, bang. Continuous explosions sounded behind him, but Phone Bujua still did not look back. In the end, Father is still not dead, he thought. But, judging from the sound, it can't catch up for now. Even if I don't use my full strength, it can't shorten the distance. His judgment was correct. The monster was indeed not dead, and it quickly regrouped and chased after them. However, the monster's movement speed was a major weakness. If it wanted to catch up with Brother Jew in his serious state, it might not be able to do so. Assuming the 5 of them are not attacked by monsters, I only have about 5 minutes left to solve their breathing problem. Phone Bujua's thoughts did not stop, and his feet quickened. If they trigger some kind of battle, the situation will be even more dangerous. The time they can hold their breath will be greatly reduced or even interrupted. Thinking of this, Brother Jew happened to see Ub's figure. The latter was now in the water, floating on the water with his feet, but he did not have to worry about breathing because, oh, this guy. When Phone Bujua came behind Ub, he immediately relaxed. He has an oxygen tank and a breathing device on him. As a very professional player with a medical mastery, it was not surprising that Ub had these. Of course, Ub himself did not expect these things to come into play in this situation. Several seconds later, Ub heard the sound of running water. He turned around and saw Brother Jew running toward him. Oh, Teacher Jew, the pollen. I know I'm fine. Follow me. Phone Bujua interrupted Ub and said these 9 words quickly. When he said the first 3 words, he was still behind Ub. When he said the second 3 words, he had already grabbed Ub's arm. When he said the last 3 words, he was already dragging Ub away. Chapter 695. Phone Bujua dragged the shocked Ub and ran for 20 seconds before they caught up to the drifting view. By then, the fatty had changed into a backstroke position so that he could cover his nose and mouth with his hands. Be careful, the pollen. Bu screamed when he saw his teammate. We're fine. Phone Bujua interrupted the man directly and continued in a commanding tone. Quickly turn yourself into the balloon state that you mentioned earlier. Quick. In this dangerous situation, Bu didn't have time to think. He followed his Brother Jew's order instinctively. The next second, his body slowly left the water and floated into the air. Ub, grab him, hold on tight. When Phone Bujua said that, he had already run past Ub. In these few seconds, Ub had just gotten used to Brother Jew's speed. He was still confused. Now that Brother Jew suddenly gave him a command, he needed some time to react. Fortunately, Ub's reaction was quite fast. The moment he was about to pass by Bu, he reached out his hand in time and grabbed Bu. The next second, Feng Bujue's one dragging two, floating on the water, spectacles started. Brother Jew was at the front, running on the water. He used his right hand to grab Ub's left arm and dragged it behind him. Ub's right arm grabbed Bu, who had already ballooned, and Bu floated in the air like a kite swaying in the wind. Bu, other than holding your breath, do you have any other way to prevent yourself from breathing in the pollen? Feng Bujue was still trying to figure out a way to solve the danger before him. No, Bu replied quickly. Then he puffed up his cheeks and continued to hold his breath. Teacher Ju, I have 2 oxygen tanks and a respirator. You can give one to Bu, Ub said. Air, but you have to stop first. Now, I can't take it. Don't worry. Feng Bujue grinned. We'll talk about it when we find the others. Upon hearing that Ob still had a set of respirators and oxygen tanks, Feng Bujue's heart immediately calmed down. Since the oxygen pipe was a one-time use item, Brother Ju could not share it with other players. Therefore, the oxygen supply device that Ub carried was crucial. Before they left the area covered in pollen, other than Brother Ju, all 5 of them were counting on the oxygen supply device. Under such circumstances, an additional set of equipment would double the team's efficiency. Hey, what's going on? Just as Brother Ju was deep in thought, Xiaoling's figure appeared in front of them. She immediately shouted at the 3 of them. At this moment, Xiaoling was still bouncing back and forth between the 2 stone walls. She did not fall into the water. Furthermore, she was wearing a gas mask. I've already forgotten. The clothes she's wearing come with a gas mask when it shows her face. Feng Bujue thought to himself when he saw the other party. If that's the case, things will be easier. Grab you. We'll talk on the way. Brother Ju immediately shouted back at the top of his lungs. Okay, at least it's easier than jumping by myself. Xiaoling replied. She was at a slightly higher altitude than Bu. When she saw the 3 of them flying a kite, she immediately understood Brother Ju's intention. Therefore, when the 3 of them passed by below her, Xiaoling took advantage of the opportunity to flip over and grab Bu's left ankle. At this point, Brother Ju went from dragging 2 people by himself to dragging 3 people by himself. Whoa, is this a train? Not long after, Ruo Yu's figure appeared in front of them. When she saw the situation of the 4 of them, she could not help but complain. Hey, are you sure it's okay for you to be so relaxed? Feng Bujue asked because Ruo Yu was not in a hurry at this time. In this place where they could not breathe, Ruo Yu inserted Holy Seal horizontally into the stone wall and stood on the hilt, waiting calmly in place. It's okay, I have the relevant skills. It's okay if I don't breathe for a while, Ruo Yu said and turned around. In this situation, I guess that you would catch up quickly, so I'll wait for you here for a while, so you don't have to worry. When she said the second half of the sentence, she had already pulled out Holy Seal and grabbed Xiaoling's hand. Since you've dragged 3 of them, bring me along too. You're really not polite at all. Feng Bujue smiled crookedly. He increased the force on his legs and increased his speed. He ran faster and faster because he was worried that the father behind him would catch up. Secondly, he was afraid that Void Tread's walking on water effect would fail. This effect was not unlimited. As long as Brother Ju's load reached a certain weight, he would still sink. Therefore, whenever Brother Ju carried an extra person, correspondingly, he had to increase his speed. The theory behind this was similar to skipping on water. According to the laws of fluid mechanics, the higher the flow speed, the lower the pressure. When an object that is denser than water passes over the surface of the water, it will cause the water below it to flow faster in a very short amount of time, thus reducing the pressure. However, the water below it is still, so the pressure generated will be greater. Thus, a pressure will be exerted on the object. When the pressure is greater than the weight of the object will bounce up. This situation will repeat many times, and the object will appear to jump on the surface of the water. If he stopped in place, the shoe's water tread function would fail, similar to the function of standing in the air. Once it failed, it would need a period of time to recover. By the way, How come I didn't know you have a skill to hold your breath? Even though he was dragging 4 people, Brother Jew still had the energy to speak. He had just realized that running with the oxygen pipe in his mouth was easier than running with normal breathing. It's not holding your breath, it's regulating your breath, Ruo Yu replied, loudly from behind. I just learned it when I was shopping at the Thriller box today. Oh, something like turtle breathing skill? Feng Bujue turned back to ask. I'll show you when I have time, Ruo Yu replied. Even though her tone was light, the skill that she bought this time was definitely not to be underestimated. Name: Brilliant Jade Skill. Level 1. Skill card property. Special skill. Permanent. Skill will improve with training skill type. Effect 1. The first awakening of this skill, the accumulation of inner breath. Learning requirement. Female player. Level 35 and above. Fighting Mastery A. Sorcery Mastery unlocked. Remark: the ultimate skill of the Shifting Flower Palace, the ultimate skill of the Inner Chi School. Those who have mastered this skill will have endless power. Their chi will be as cold as ice, and they will be invincible. Many people had the same question in their hearts. Ruo Yu was a player who did not lack money, and her gaming skill was not low. Theoretically speaking, her equipment and skills should not be weaker than Feng Bujue's. So how come she did not bring out any legendary equipment? Here, the answer would be revealed, other than the basic equipment, like the flashlight. When Ruo Yu actively purchased equipment and skills, she preferred those that had the characteristic of growth. Furthermore, she did not want the normal ones. The ones that caught her eye were the best of the best. For example, sainthood was a weapon with sealed power. When the number of evil spirits killed by this sword increased to a certain number, its seal would be removed, and it would become a legendary weapon. Another example would be this Bright Jade skill. Don't look at the first level's mediocre effect, but the price was as high as tens of thousands of skill points. Most people would give up after seeing the inexplicable effect description and then looking at the price. However, when Ruo Yu saw the word skill will improve with training, she decisively bought it. Different from Feng Bujue's method of real-time improvement, Ruo Yu was the kind of person who either did not buy it or bought it in one go. She could patiently accumulate skill points until an item that she thought was worth buying appeared. That was why she did not spend her skill points, even after leveling up so many times. Under this philosophy, there was no doubt that it would give birth to a player who was average in the early stages, but heaven-defying in the later stages. And this was also the reason why Vincent placed his bet on Ruo Yu. Brother Jew, this is bad. After dragging the 4 people and running for 3 minutes, Xiao Tan's shout suddenly came from the front, and his figure appeared. Hey, why are you running back? Feng Bujue said, that's the direction of escape. Also, there are people chasing us. It doesn't matter, Xiao Tan shouted with a panicked face. Before the roar was over, a huge black shadow slowly approached from the river behind him, entering everyone's line of sight. I've got something worse coming. Chapter 696. The water splashed, and the giant shadow moved. Before Xiao Tan finished a shout, the black shadow had already crawled through the meandering river and revealed its true form. This thing is probably the little sister from the Song of the Juniper Tree. Feng Bujue came to this conclusion when he saw the monster's face. Even though the monster was about the size of an elephant, she still looked like a little girl, and her clothes were still intact. But this little girl was similar to her father and mother. Her face was twisted and scary. Teacher Ju, what should we do now? The monster before them gave up a lot of pressure. In this situation, the first thing he did was to ask Brother Ju for his opinion. That's simple. Feng Bujue's reaction was calm and collected. He paused for half a second and then said loudly, Ruo Yu, Shaoling, turn back to deal with the pursuers. Give your oxygen supply equipment to Xiao Tan and Bu so they can catch their breath. Regarding the monster before us. He paused and let go of Ub's arm. I'll deal with it. Once he finished, everyone followed Brother Ju's order. For the teammates, this was something that was expected of them. No one doubted Feng Bujue's strategy, and no one thought that he would lose to the monster before them. Xiaoling, leave the pursuers to me. You just need to cover them from a high vantage point. Ruo Yu said to Xiaoling, who was closest to her. No problem. Xiaoling followed closely behind and answered. The two of them worked well together. Ruo Yu knew that this kind of meandering river was not suitable for Xiaoling to shoot from afar, so she took on the role of the main attacker. After all, for Ruo Yu, any kind of terrain was the same. Bu changed to floating on the water. On the other hand, who fell back into the water, immediately took out another set of oxygen supply equipment from his backpack and handed his own to Bu. At the same time, he turned to shout at Xiao Tan, "Hey, brother Xiao Tan, come over here." For Xiao Tan, who was holding his breath until his face was purple, Ob's shout was like a lifesaver. He rushed over without hesitation, grabbed the respirator, and started to gasp for air. Phew, thank you. After taking a few breaths, Xiao Tan said, I'm almost suffocating. Me too. Bu, who had just put on the oxygen supply, added, being dragged at high speed in the form of a balloon and having to endure the force from two directions, I almost threw up. Speaking of which, Teacher Ju is so powerful. Added, he can not only breathe in this black pollen, he can temporarily fight off the pursuers. In the previous 3 minutes, Brother Ju had already told his teammates about the monster chasing behind them, and he can drag the four of us at high speed for several kilometers without flinching. Bu also nodded and said, after all this, he still acted as if nothing had happened and rushed towards a monster alone. At this point, they all subconsciously turned to look at Brother Ju, and they saw, at that moment, Feng Bujua had already leaped high into the air and landed on top of the monster. He took out Kismet and aimed. This time, the bullet he used was a giant diamond that he had scooped up from the bottom of the river. Of course, giant was only a relative term. It was nothing compared to a brick, but compared to the cutting materials commonly used in jewelry, this thing was definitely a giant. If you had a diamond like this in the real world, the government would have been alerted already. Devil, eat my diamond star bullet. Brother Ju, who had taken aim, pulled back his bow and shouted like a Chinibu as he launched his attack. TSK, mimicking Monkey King's tone and calling out this kind of skill name that he came up with on the spot. Ruo Yu, who was about 10 meters away, heard Brother Ju's shout. She could not help but grumble under her breath. He still thinks he is so cool. Wow, that's so cool. At the same time, Xiao Tan, Bu, and who were behind her, exclaimed with their eyes wide open. Sigh. Ruo Yu sighed helplessly. This is hopeless. Screech. At that moment, the sound of the diamond piercing through the air was suddenly heard. The dazzling light was just like a falling star. Just as the monster straightened up and roared, the diamond star bullet hit it squarely. Following that, an extremely disgusting thing happened. The shell shot by Kismet was like a drill bit. It drilled into the top of the sister's head and began to spin at high speed. It began to sink. In the next second, blood, flesh, skin, bones, tendons, marrow, as well as many solids and liquids that no one knew what they were, they all splashed out from the monster's body. The scene was like a great white shark swallowing a propeller, or it could even be said to be worse. About 8 seconds later, the diamond star bullet lost its effect. The monster was naturally dead, and it died a very heroic death. Everything within a radius of a dozen meters around him was covered in a layer of sticky corpse fragments. What the F***CK? So powerful. Even Feng Bujua himself did not expect that attack to be so powerful. Thankfully, he reacted fast enough. When the first wave of brain matter sprayed out, he had already used Jeppo to climb a certain distance, or else his whole body would have been covered in mud. After the monster's body sank into the water, Bu wiped away the flesh on his breathing mask as he said, No wonder he is Teacher Ju. Even a monster like this can be killed with such precision. As expected of Teacher Ju, his moves are a bit more brutal than normal people. Also slowly poked his head out of the water. He had cleverly dove into the water to cover his head earlier and added in a low voice, this is so dirty. Xiao Tan was the worst. He was standing closer to the monster, so he was splashed the most. Thankfully, he was a doctor in real life, so he was used to these things like organs and flesh, so he could still tolerate it. Oh well, after all, we're in the river. I'll just wash it off, Xiaoling, who was far away, turned to look at Brother Ju's group, and said to Ruoyu, the problem with the boys seems to have been dealt with. That's expected. Ruoyu answered coldly. Bu is very powerful now. As long as the system does not limit his power, even if he runs into a level 1 anomaly, he has a chance of winning. She paused. But that is a digression. In any case, on our side, at this point, the father that had been shot through by Brother Ju finally caught up to them. On our side, let's end this quickly as well, Ruoyu said as she placed the holy seal before her chest, forming a strange pose. Chapter 697. Hey, what are you doing? Feng Bujue, who had finished off the monster, stood in mid-air and turned around to look at the situation on Ruoyu's side. What's the point of that posture? As he muttered, he had already activated the data observation perspective. Oh, to be able to temporarily not breathe in the outside air. Is she relying on the first level of the bright jade skill? But this can't explain your current actions. The reason why Feng Bujue was puzzled was because, from the data, Ruoyu did not show any signs of activating any skills. Since she was not going to use any active skills, why did she have to take such a strange posture? Bang, bang, bang. At this moment, the dull sound of water hitting the surface gradually approached, and the figure of Daddy could be clearly seen. Not long ago, this monster was indeed smashed into pieces by Brother Ju's evil king's Inferno Purgatory Scorch. It was smashed into many pieces of charred flesh. However, this degree of damage was still unable to completely kill it, because its swollen body was originally pieced together by many pieces of flesh, like rain. Be careful. Although the size of the one on your side is small, it is more difficult to deal with than the one on my side. Feng Bujue took out the pipe from his mouth and reminded her loudly in mid-air. Even if you cut it into pieces, it can still recover. Oomph. Ruoyu's expression was as cold as ice, and she snorted coldly. That's because you cut it the wrong way. As she spoke, she had already bounced off the wall, like a swallow flashing back, and charged towards the front of the monster at high speed. The sword rose, the aura fluctuated, the shadow staggered, and the breath beckoned. Everything happened so quickly that the sound of the sharp blade cutting through flesh became as light as the sound of the wind. The monster did not even have time to attack before Ruoyu had already finished more than 10 slashes and flashed behind him. What the? Bu and Ub, who had witnessed this scene, were dumbfounded. The two of them uttered these 4 words at the same time. This is at least an A-level fighting skill. Ub muttered. Yeah, more than 10 slashes in less than 2 seconds. It's impossible to just rely on physical skills. Bu continued. There aren't as many as a few dozen strikes. Xiao Tan, who was washing his neck in the river, raised his head and interrupted. It should be between the 14th and 17th strikes. This time, Bu and Ub turned to look at Xiao Tan in unison. No way. Big brother Xiao Tan, you actually saw that move clearly? Bu exclaimed. I didn't see clearly. Xiao Tan replied. It's precisely because I didn't see it clearly that I said between 14 and 17. If I had seen it clearly, then I would have been able to tell the exact number. Ub rubbed his chin and muttered, the members of the underworld frontline are indeed unfathomable. While they were talking, the pieces of Daddy had already fallen into the river. Soon, a pool of blood spread out from the bottom of the water, emitting a foul stench. Ruoyu sheathed her sword, flipped over the wall, and said to Feng Bujue, that's how you'll die. As the saying goes, the layman enjoys the show, while the expert appreciates the skill. At this moment, only Feng Bujue saw Ruoyu's every move, and only he knew. What Ruoyu used was not an active skill, but a high-level combat style that combined passive skills and Soul's Eye. First, she used a passive skill, Preemptive Perception. Today, Ruoyu's title was no longer Elemental Swordsman. After a few changes, her title had become 1,000 evil slayer. Yes, she had slain more than 1,000 monsters. Preemptive perception was the title ability that came with this title. Name: Preemptive perception, special ability type. Passive, effect: sense the enemy's own energy, breath, and the flow of the surrounding air, and determine the enemy's next move. Remark: only a peerless swordsman who has experienced hundreds of battles can understand this realm. This skill, to put it simply, it was a weakened version of zero-time difference calculation. Of course, even if it was a weakened version, in battle, especially in hand-to-hand combat, it could provide an advantage that could not be measured by data. Secondly, Ruo Yu's Soul's Eye's extreme efficiency had been developed into an advanced version of Restricted Burst. Because the complete version of extreme efficiency had a very high requirement on spiritual power, it was not suitable to be used for a long period of time. Thus, Rainey researched and improved it. After repeated thinking and practice, she found a more efficient way to use it. This was Restricted Burst. For example, when Ruo Yu launched the attack, she did not let her whole body enter the state of extreme efficiency. She only released her right hand that was holding the sword. This way, she could slash out that kind of super fast slash without using extra spiritual power to increase the state of her whole body. Just from this advanced usage, it could be seen that Ruo Yu's battle talent was above Feng Buju's. Both of them had understood Soul's Eye on the same day. Moreover, whether it was before or after, Feng Buju's gaming time was obviously more than Ruo Yu's. But now, Ruo Yu was one step ahead, and she had mastered a new skill through practice. She is indeed impressive, so impressive that even someone like me feels inferior. Feng Buju looked at Ruo Yu's back and thought to himself. She used preemptive perception to read the opponent's movement and then released her right arm to perform a series of slashes that were shockingly fast and extremely precise. This was also the first time Brother Ju had seen Limit Burst, so he was confused by the stance that Ruo Yu used earlier, but after seeing it, Brother Ju immediately understood the theory behind the technique. Just these two moves alone are already the work of a top expert. However, the real scary thing about her is not her skill, but something else. This something else that Feng Buju referred to was something that even Ruo Yu herself did not realize. That was, she had a power similar to the Demon's Eye of Death. This had to be explained from the scenario of the 7 Unthinkable Campus. When facing the scenario's final boss, Kiizi, Ruo Yu killed her in one hit. With her equipment, level, and basic physical skills at the time, that was impossible. At the time, I explained, this is an innate talent, just like how the top experts in wuxia novels can see through their opponent's Achilles heel and win with one hit. Yes, this was the unique talent that Ruo Yu had. As long as she focused enough, she could see the crisscrossing lines and dots on the enemy's body in a short amount of time. Initially, Feng Buju did not notice this. After all, even the person involved was not that clear about it. But as time passed, as Ruo Yu killed more and more enemies before him, Brother Ju slowly noticed it. On the other hand, only someone like Feng Buju, who had zero-time difference calculation, data perspective, and an extremely meticulous mind, could predict Ruo Yu's power from an outsider's perspective. Using the monster from earlier as an example, if the monster was a model made from a bunch of building blocks, then Feng Buju's attack was to shatter the model and turn it back into a complete set of building blocks. That was how the monster was able to piece itself back together. Ruo Yu's attack, on the other hand, was to slice apart every single building block and turn it back into a pile of broken building blocks. This kind of attack, naturally, it would not be able to rise again. Whether it's preemptive sense or the advanced usage of Soul's Eye, to put it bluntly, they are all powers that can only be used in actual action. I have that power as well. All the super players have it, but the specific form varies from person to person. Looking at Ruo Yu, who returned from the wall, Feng Buju said, but the ability to look directly at death belongs to another realm. Leader, can we continue our journey? Xiaoling's question pulled Brother Ju back from his thoughts. All right. Feng Buju nodded and landed on the surface of the water. How about this? I will continue to drag the four of you as we run. Xiao Tan, put on a breathing device and follow us through the wall. Then he put away the slingshot and picked up the pipe. At the same time, the Count of Script's voice entered Brother Ju's mind. You're not far from the end of this area. Hurry up, or else its mother is coming. Chapter 698. Phew! Finally, I can breathe normally. That was the first thing Xiao Tan said after taking off the breathing mask. By then, Brother Bujue's group had reached the end of the river. There were no more black roses and poisonous pollen, only a waterfall that flowed upstream. It's this kind of waterfall again. Looking at the water that flowed against the current, Feng Bujue was instantly reminded of his experience when he visited the detective club last time. Is it going to be that strange transmigration setting again? Even though he had his concerns, he had no other choice. After all, there was no fork in the river, so they could not go back the way they came. Guys, let's just ride the current up. When they reached the edge of the waterfall, Feng Bujue slowed down, put away his pipe, and turned back to tell his teammates. I'm fine with that. After all, it's just a change of weight. Bu added. I'm fine with that as well. After all, I've been in the water before, Xiao Tan added. I'm fine with that as well. I've also agreed. But the two ladies who had not been in the water before did not seem to be willing to jump into the river. Bujue, you don't mind if I stand on your shoulder for a while, right? Ruoyu asked. Feng Bujue was startled before he replied. I don't mind, but is that necessary? Of course. Before Ruoyu could reply, Spirited interjected. Although you won't lose any values in the water, your wet clothes will stick to your body after you leave the water. It'll be super uncomfortable. She paused. Furthermore, we haven't touched any water on our way here. If we jump into the river now, it will feel like all our efforts have been wasted. Okay, Feng Bujue said then, let passing rain stand on my shoulder. As for Laughing Soul, Xiao Tan, you can carry her. How am I supposed to carry her? Xiao Tan said, even though I know how to swim, I can't guarantee that I won't sway when someone stands on my shoulder. Feng Bujue laughed. That's easy. Just let her ride on your shoulder. 30 seconds later, the players enter the waterfall. The direction of gravity here was different from the previous area, so they did not have to worry about falling down after leaving the water. To them, the below from before was now the rear, and the chin just now was the chin now. I really won't fall. Brother Ju squatted on the surface of the water, stretched out his arms to both sides, and tightened his muscles. With a constipated expression on his face, he said, I'm bearing the weight of 3 people, but I still won't fall. At this moment, Xiao Tan, Bu, and Ub were floating on the surface of the water. Only Feng Bujue was squatting on the surface of the water as if he was juggling. Moreover, there was a person standing on each of his shoulders. We're both girls, so we should count as one. 5 people. Xiao Ling, who was standing on Brother Ju's left shoulder, said. That depends on the situation, Feng Bujue replied. If that person refers to Bu, then the weight of the 2 of you should only be 0. 8 people. Teacher Ju, I can become very light. Bu, who was floating past Brother Ju, added in at the right time. Sigh. Feng Bujue sighed and started to recite. Do not sigh over the bitter Huang Lian. Even a smile can bring sorrow. What does that mean? Ub, who was treading on the water not far away, turned to ask. The core idea is... Ruoyu, who was standing on Brother Ju's right shoulder, continued. He deeply realized that his current situation was caused by his stupid mouth. After hearing that, Bu showed an impressed expression. Teacher Ju is indeed impressive. Your poem is so profound. Ub also said, Teacher Ju is indeed impressive. Even when he reflects, he is more poetic than a normal person. Are these 2 really not sent by the author to make up the word count? How many times do they have to repeat the same sentence pattern before they're satisfied? Feng Bujue did not say it out loud, but internally, he was already complaining. The group rode the current and moved forward quickly. Soon, the shining river behind disappeared from their sight, and with it, the light source. There was no gold, silver, or jewelry at the bottom of this waterfall, and there was no light shining up from the bottom of the river. The players had to take out their lighting devices again to light up the path before them. In just a few minutes, the players seemed to have floated from dusk to night, and it was the kind of night where they could not see their own fingers if they did not turn on the lights. Of course, if one thought about it, the direction they were heading in was the darkness that was above their heads not long ago. When they realized it, a thick, almost tangible shadow had surrounded them. Even with the searchlight in Brother Jew's hand, it could only illuminate a radius of less than 5 meters. The rushing water kept pushing them forward, and the unknown darkness was closing in on them like a beast. In this situation, naturally, the players' terror points would be raised to new heights. Xiao Tan, Bu, and Ub all swam to Brother Jew's side at the same time and held each other's hands. In their hearts, a strange thought appeared. If they were washed away by the current into the darkness, they would never be able to find their teammates again. Several minutes later, Xiao Tan suddenly said, Did you guys notice the surroundings seem to have turned colder? Is it because we've been soaking in cold water for so long that our body temperature has dropped? Bu asked. No, it is indeed getting colder, Ruo Yu said in a firm tone. The temperature has dropped from 20 degrees Celsius to about 5 degrees Celsius. As someone who had not been in the water before, her words were quite convincing, and the stone walls on both sides have disappeared, Xiao Ling added. Then she swept the flashlight in her hand to the sides. Indeed, the two stone walls that were originally 3 meters apart had disappeared. In their place was a thick darkness that was as thick as black velvet. All that, I've noticed. The only person who could answer these questions calmly was Feng Bujue, and I noticed a long time ago. Then, why didn't you say so earlier? Ruo Yu asked. I thought you guys already knew. Feng Bujue answered matter-of-factly. The darkness is thickening, the distance between the stone walls is widening, and the air is getting colder. These are things that can be seen and sensed. We haven't run into any monsters or anything out of the ordinary along the way, so you should have noticed it already, right? Well, by the time we realized it, it was already too late. Xiao Tan said. It's all the same, Feng Bujue said in a lazy tone. Even if I noticed the changes in the first place, I couldn't change anything, right? At most, I would be calmer mentally than you guys and wouldn't have the sense of panic. Given that you don't have any sense of panic under any circumstances, Ruo Yu said. Next time, if you notice something, you should tell us as soon as possible. Feng Bujue said weakly. Okay. Next time Suddenly, a strange child's voice interrupted Brother Jew. Look for a friend, found a good friend, salute, shake hands. At this point, the voice suddenly stopped. Just then, Ub screamed and sank into the water. What happened? Didn't he capture you guys? Feng Bujue immediately turned to ask Bu and Xiao Tan. I don't know. Bu was scared out of his wits. He looked at Brother Jew with a wooden expression and stammered. When the song started, he let go of his own accord. Then, the child's voice laughed strangely and continued to sing. Find a good friend. I'm looking for you. Feng Bujue cursed. Don't play this game with me. Hand him over. Brother Jew knew very well that in a normal difficulty scenario, such a sudden death would not happen. Furthermore, the first thing he did was open the game menu to confirm it. In the team tab, Ub's status was still alive. Therefore, the scene that was happening in front of him was most likely just a scare plot. From the foreshadowing of the previous atmosphere to the content of the lyrics, it was all part of a psychological battle. In such a situation, he had to suppress the other party with his aura and destroy the terrifying atmosphere that the other party had created. This way, the enemy would reveal his weakness. Several seconds later, the child's voice started singing again. It seemed like it wanted to ignore Brother Jew and repeat what it had just said. But how could Feng Bujue let him have his way? Sing your beep. Brother Jew immediately shouted into the darkness in front of him with a voice twice as loud as his brother's. I'm talking to you. This time, The voice did not manage to continue. It had to pause for a few seconds before continuing. Found a good friend. Are you F Asterisk King deaf? Feng Bujua shouted. Why don't you try singing one more line? After a short moment of silence. Salute. Shaolin Kung Fu is awake. Good, good. Shaolin Kung Fu is strong. Iron Head Technique. Invincible Iron Head Technique. Your King Kong leg. King Kong leg. Feng Bujua used such a song to choke it back in its throat. Finally, when Brother Ju sang the line, Shaolin Kung Fu is strong, it could not take it anymore. Stop. The child's voice roared. It's awful. This roar announced that it had been brought into the rhythm of Brother Ju's ridicule. In a sense, the outcome had already been decided. Haha. So you can hear me? Feng Bujua stopped his shameless singing and laughed. That's easy. If you want to talk terms with me, you have to hand over my partner. And if I don't hand it over, it asked, I'm King Kong leg. King Kong leg. Wah 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 wah. A hoarse, high-pitched voice responded to its question. All right, you win. Its shocked tone revealed a hint of helplessness. It was clear that it was feeling very much like a sore thumb. Splash. Splash. The next second, Ub's body suddenly surfaced from the water around the players. Ha! Ha! Once he poked his head out of the water, he gasped greedily for air. What happened earlier? Actually, it's nothing. I think you should be thankful that you weren't here earlier. When Ruoyu said that to Ub, her eyes fell on Brother Ju, and there was condescension in her eyes. Feng Bujua, I thought the rumors about you were exaggerated. Moments later, it spoke again. Now, it looks like hearing about you is not as good as meeting you in person. We haven't officially met, right? Feng Bujua asked. At least, I haven't seen you in person, have I? He tested without batting an eyelid. Don't tell me your real body is a sparrow. Before he finished, the voice of the Count of Script appeared in his mind. Feng Bujua, don't do anything stupid. If you get into a direct confrontation with it, you'll definitely die. Even I won't be able to help you. Brother Zun said seriously. Now, it has combined with the me in the scenario. You only need to find the boy's body. Shut up. Count a script. At that moment, something unbelievable happened. It yelled and interrupted the voice in Brother Ju's mind. Chapter 699. Humph. You think I can't hear you? It scoffed and said, Count a script. When you said the first word, I was listening. I heard it clearly. What's going on? Who's it talking to? Bu looked left and right with a puzzled expression as he muttered. Don't interrupt. Feng Bujua turned his head and whispered for Bu to stop talking. When the other teammates saw Brother Ju's action, they understood what he meant, and they all suppressed their desire to ask questions. You think you're still the ruler here? He said in a low voice. Even though he lowered his voice, it was still a child's voice, so it did not make much of a difference. You think just a few travelers from another dimension can destroy my parasites? He smirked. Forgive me for being blunt, kind of script, but even if my real body appeared before you, you might not be my match. The next second, Brother Ju spoke. This time, his voice was no longer limited to Brother Ju's mind, because it was no longer necessary, but loud enough for everyone to hear. You don't even believe that yourself, do you, Dianhai King? The three words Dianli King were like a sudden clap of thunder. The moment the word king was uttered, the players heard the sound of metal exploding. Then, the scenery around them changed abruptly. Blinding sunlight shone down from above, and the rapid waterfall instantly turned into rolling yellow sand. In the blink of an eye, the 6 players arrived at a desolate and scorching desert. Several seconds later, Dianhai King's voice rang out again. My name, in this universe, only a very few, very high presences know your name, the Count of Script replied. And I am one of them. Fine. Dianhai King replied coldly. Dianhai King said coldly, as a god born in the new era, you are indeed very knowledgeable, The Count of Script chuckled meaningfully. I'm not some god. Like you, I'm just a watcher. The difference is, I have fulfilled my duty, but you have betrayed your mission. What right do you have to comment on my decision and action? Dianhai King retorted. Right? Huh. The Count of Script scoffed. As an uninvited guest who has been hiding in my mind, shouldn't you reconsider your position and attitude? I don't think that's necessary, Dianhai King added. At this moment, my control over this world is greater than yours. As long as I do not directly clash with the system, no one can stop me. He paused. Once these travelers from another dimension, or rather, once Feng Bujue is killed by me, your only hope to chase me out will disappear. Therefore, I will not let you. At this point, the Count of Script suddenly sped up and yelled, Feng Bujue, walk away from the sun. The next trigger point is 5 kilometers away. Roger that. Brother Ju heard that and nodded decisively. Then he turned to his teammates. Guys, I will explain the details later. In any case, this Count of Script is on our side, so let's follow his orders. Then, he started to move and led the charge. By then, Ruo Yu and Xiao Ling had already jumped down from his shoulders. Xiao Tan, Bu, and Ub had also climbed out from the sand. They had no idea what was going on with this celestial quarrel, and they had no idea what the two voices in the sky were talking about. But they trusted Feng Bujue very much, so, without saying anything, the 5 started to run with Brother Ju. TSK. Such a clever trick. Seeing that the players were moving quickly under Brother Zun's instructions, Dianli King naturally wouldn't just stand by and watch. It snorted in disdain and then said loudly, Travelers from another dimension. I know that you don't care about this virtual life and death, but I still want to give you a piece of advice. If you continue forward, you will die. At this point, there was no need for him to play tricks anymore. Releasing some monsters was the right thing to do. Instantly, in the desert about 100 meters before the players, more than 10 sharp cones that were thicker than electric poles and shaped like joints appeared a few seconds later. The sand beneath the cone began to swell. As the yellow sand flowed down, huge, yellow-brown scorpions appeared in front of the players, blocking their path. Oh, Golden Scorpion of the Middle East. When Brother Ju saw the monsters, he calmly stated their scientific name. Based on your tone, they do not sound like they are that powerful, Ruo Yu said. I don't know if they're powerful or not. I have not personally encountered one before. Feng Bujue added, but I heard from TV shows that this type of scorpion is aggressive, and psychotic. He paused for half a second. Considering the size of the scorpions before us are larger than hippos, I don't think we should be careless. He was right. The golden scorpion of Middle East was no doubt an anomaly among scorpions. Normally, scorpions that were more venomous had smaller chelicerae, but this type of scorpion was not only venomous, it also had a pair of large chelicerae. Combined with its cruel personality, it was a natural-born monster. It doesn't matter. At this moment, Xiao Ling spoke. As long as we are in an open space, I will kill as many of these non-spiritual monsters as they come. Before she finished, she already had 2 pistols in her hands. Miss Laughing Soul, to deal with such a large monster, using pistols. I don't think the firepower is enough. Bu saw that she only had 2 pistols, so he kindly reminded her. Even though my marksmanship is average, I have an RPG in my inventory, or else. Bang, bang, bang. A series of gunshots interrupted Bu's words. At that moment, Xiao Ling pulled the trigger with her left hand and fired 4 silver bullets to the monster closest to them. Name: Moon Killer Item Type. Sorcery Weapon Quality: Excellent. Offense points: Extremely Strong Element. Ice Special Effect 1. New Moon. Based on the shooter's will, the trajectory of the bullet will be automatically adjusted to a certain extent. Special Effect 2. Full Moon. Unlimited Ammo. Special Effect 3. Waning Moon. The temperature of the gun is always constant. Special Effect 4. Lunar Eclipse. 100% chance of triggering attributes. Remark: a cold gun born from the shadow of the moon. TZ. 2 seconds later, all the bullets landed on the same giant scorpion, creating a sound similar to a hailstorm. A frosty white chill spread rapidly on the surface of the monster's body. Even though it struggled a few times, it was still frozen into a huge ice block in an instant. At that moment, the gun in Xiaoling's right hand fired. Name: falling star item type. Sorcery weapon, quality, excellent, offense points, extremely strong element. Fire special effect 1. Star path. Based on a shooter's will, the trajectory of the bullet will be automatically adjusted to a certain extent. Special effect 2. Star cloud. Unlimited ammo. Special effect 3. Star fire. The temperature of the gun is always constant. Special effect 4. Meteor. 100% chance of triggering attributes. Remark: the blazing spear born from the stars. Boom, boom, boom. The golden bullets exploded after hitting the target, and the energy from the explosion shattered the frozen monster into pieces in less than 5 seconds. Xiaoling easily took down a giant scorpion, and this action once again made Bu and Ub gasp in amazement. CKMe. Does she have to be so good? For a monster of this level, if it was me and Ub, we would have to use at least one skill and lose some life points. Bu thought to himself. Ub also thought to himself. Looks like she was not bluffing. As long as we are in an open area, no matter how many monsters like this come, they will all die, I say. Let's move around a little. Feng Bujue, who was running at the front, also summoned Death Poker and said in a lazy tone, "After all, there are quite a number of monsters, and they are all blocking our way. If we use ranged weapons to clear them one by one, even though it is safe and low energy consumption, it will affect our speed. You will be in charge of the frontal assault, Xiao Ling will be in charge of the flanks, and I will be in charge of providing support in case of emergency." Ruo Yu immediately came up with a strategy as a response to her brother Ju. Huh, good suggestion, let's go. Feng Bujue accepted it happily and rushed toward the group of scorpions. Air, big sister, then what should we do? For some reason, the way Bu addressed Ruo Yu changed naturally. You and Ub follow behind and protect yourselves. We will lead the way here. After Ruo Yu replied, she immediately looked at Xiao Tan. Xiao Tan, if there are any monsters that slip through the net or something unexpected happens, you have to protect the back of the team. No problem, Xiao Tan replied and pulled out his energy-storing tri-edge trench blade from the sheath beside him, ready to fight at any time. As the 6 of them talked, they did not stop moving. Under the leadership of Feng Bujue, they formed a diamond-shaped formation and rushed forward at an extremely high speed. In less than 10 seconds, Brother Ju had arrived at the edge of the group of scorpions. His eyes were burning with killing intent. Just in time, I have always wanted to try my AoE. With that in mind, the 5th special effect of Death Poker, Soul Chase, randomly consumed 30 cards to release 1 to 100 single poker cards with a power of 7, was activated. 100 light cards flew out from Brother Ju's palm and hit the group of scorpions in front of him. That was not the end. While the cards were still in midair, Feng Bujue took a step forward and leaped up. He responded with a shout, "Renkyaka Chaos!" Chapter 700. In just 3 seconds, dozens of half-moon-shaped rays of light scattered out in a disorderly manner and bombarded the scorpions like a rain of flowers. Under the double attack of the poker cards and Rankyaku, the scorpions suffered heavy casualties, and most of them lost their ability to fight. Feng Bujue sighed in relief when he saw the effectiveness of the attack. To be honest, he was worried that the monsters would not be strong enough to withstand the damage from the AoE. But from the looks of it, normal difficulty was normal difficulty. Even with the support of a powerful main universe boss, the monsters in this scenario were not that strong. Is that all? When Brother Ju landed on the ground, he did not forget to use Wild Ball Punch and said, "And here I thought you were going to be that good." Yes, they are much weaker than I expected. Xiao Ling added from behind. There is no need to provide cover anymore, arrogant humans. Seeing that the scorpions he released were no threat at all, Dianli King was furious. His childish voice, since he had taken over the boss body, he could only use this voice to speak for now, soon rang out again. You think you are invincible just because you have taken care of a few bugs? The real terror has just begun. Before he could finish his sentence, A sand dune in front of the players exploded with a loud bang. Originally, he thought that there would be a huge beast or something like that coming out of the sand, but unexpectedly, what appeared was an extremely small black shadow. As it got closer, the players saw it clearly. It was a human shadow. That person was only about 5 meters tall. From the outside, he looked like a normal or even a weak zombie. His face was pale, his skin was festering, and his movements were slow. It felt like any blunt object could be used to knock him on the head, and that would be enough to deal with him. However, Fong Bujue could see that this monster was not to be underestimated. Oh, this one is quite powerful. Brother Ju observed the monster through the data view when he appeared and thought to himself, based on the strength of the data, he is as powerful as Daddy from before. What is this? Is this a joke? However, Bu had no idea. From his perspective, the monster before them was so weak that it could be crushed. Even I can take care of a monster like this easily, Ub said confidently. Humph, you are all too naive. Fong Bujue scoffed and turned to tell the two. Don't be fooled by appearances. Have you forgotten about Frisia at Daming Lake? Instead of Daming Lake, it is more like planet Namek. Shouta could not help but mock. Is there even a comparison? Ugh. Just as they were talking, the monster let out a low groan and charged forward. In any case, I will deal with this guy, Xiao Tan said as he used the opportunity to cast across to curse the monster. Then, he charged at it with the dagger in his hand. Be careful. This guy's attack power. When Fong Bujue reminded him, Xiao Tan had already charged. In the next second, the monster raised its forearm and swung it at Xiao Tan. Wang Tanji was an expert in agility, so he would not be hit so easily by this kind of attack. He only needed to make some minor adjustments to avoid the attack without damaging his own body, and the attack landed on the monster's neck. The energy-charged tri-edge stiletto was now fully charged. When he slashed down, it had 200% attack power. Moreover, there was a 10% damage bonus from the curse skill. Its power was almost equivalent to an active skill. Xiao Tan thought that this round of confrontation would be enough to kill the target. However, the development of the situation was far beyond his expectations. First of all, his stiletto did cut the monster's neck, but the monster only slightly scratched its skin. That's right, a seemingly weak zombie was slashed in the neck by an elite-grade weapon that could store energy. Only a little bit of skin was broken. Secondly, the monster's attack, although it did not hit Xiao Tan, it landed on the sand. And the result of this slap was a huge crater with a radius of more than 10 meters was blasted into the sand. The impact was like the explosion of a missile. It lifted up layers of sand and forced all the players to retreat a little. The one who suffered the most was naturally Xiao Tan. Because he was the closest to the monster, he was shaken by the invisible shockwave. He saw stars, and his whole body flew out. I'll be back. Xiao Tan, who was flying into the sky, said this line for some reason. However, he did not turn into a star and disappear into the sky, because, come back your ass. Xiaoling jumped into the air and grabbed Xiao Tan's waist and pulled him down. You idiot! How would I know that a zombie that looks like a weakling would be so powerful? Xiao Tan replied in a wrong tone. Puffed. I told you. Don't be fooled by appearances. Fong Bujue, who had steadied himself, spat out the sand in his mouth. This monster's basic form and speed are the same as a normal zombie, but its attack and defense are ridiculously high. Compared to those scorpions, this guy's level is much higher. Then what should we do? After Xiao Tan landed, since he was on the sand, he did not suffer any damage from falling from a high place. He immediately asked, do we need to use a skill like magic beam cannon on this monster? No, I have a very simple idea. Fong Bujue's expression shifted. That is, 5 minutes later, the players successfully arrived at the next plot trigger location that the Count of Script had mentioned, an oval-shaped stone building. Right? Regarding the monster from earlier, Brother Ju's idea was to walk around it and ignore it. Reality proved that it was very effective. Fong Bujue. I advise you to stop now. or else you'll regret it. Dianhai King's voice came from the air again. From his tone, one could hear that he was getting desperate. I will make sure you die without a grave. Bury your asterisk SS. Brother Ju used another curse to interrupt the man. You still dare to mention the place of burial to me? Ever since I entered the scenario, I have been looking for your dead body, haven't I? If you dare, why don't you donate your organs, cremate your body, and scatter your ashes into the sea? He raised his head to yell. I dare you to nag at me one more time. Do you think I won't eat your body like it's a midnight snack? For some reason, after Feng Bujue scolded him, Dianhai King really stopped talking. After a while, Bujue glanced at Brother Ju from the corner of his eyes and asked nervously, Here, Teacher Ju eating a body. You're just joking, right? Huh? Feng Bujue laughed, but did not answer. He walked toward the stone building. The building was shaped like half a football. It was about 10 meters tall and 5 meters wide. It was made from white stone, and the surface was uneven. It was filled with rough lines, and on the side of the building that was away from the light, there were 3 black holes about 2 meters tall and half a meter wide. Yes, that's the place. That is the entrance to the pirate's treasure. The Count of Script's voice rang out again. The body that was possessed by Dianhai King is... Suddenly, he stopped talking. Like a phone call that was cut off, there was no sound. Hey, Brother Zun? Feng Bujue yelled into the sky. What's wrong? Say something. Where is it? Which one of the 3 is the entrance? Air. Could it be that Brother Zun is using Shaoling's skill? Xiao Tan asked. With regards to Xiao Tan's old joke, none of his teammates responded. They waited for 2 minutes, and the Count of Script did not speak again. It looked like they would have to figure out a way to identify the entrance themselves. What should we do? Split up? Shaoling gave a constructive suggestion. We can leave a few people outside and send 1 or 2 people down to scout. Bujue also came up with an idea. There's no need for that. Feng Bujue used a confident tone to reject their suggestion. Just leave it to me. What are you planning to do? Ruoyu narrowed her eyes at Brother Ju. Huh? Feng Bujue laughed proudly. I want to... He squatted down and grabbed a handful of sand. Get my fortune told. If we split up, we should go in pairs. Or we can leave 3 people up there and have the other 3 go down from the 3 different entrances. After Brother Ju revealed his plan, his teammates ignored him like he was air and continued their discussion. Hey, what is the meaning of this? Feng Bujue grumbled. You're ignoring me. Teacher Ju, we're talking about something serious here. It's just a joke. Bob turned around and said, Who's joking? Feng Bujue replied with annoyance. I just want to get my fortune told. Then he walked to the 3 entrances and extended his right arm. Look closely, Fu-Fu. Feng Bujue waved his arm, and the handful of sand in his hand was blown away by the wind. It floated to the right of the 3 entrances. Okay, I'm done. Brother Ju was telling the truth. Just as he was throwing the sand, he activated divine foresight and asked in his heart, Which is the real entrance? What's wrong? Why are you all looking at me? Feng Bujue saw no reaction from his teammates, so he asked, Is there a problem? Yes, Shaoling answered. First of all, using a fortune-telling method to decide the next step is rather nonsensical. She counted on her fingers. Second of all, if you can really do something, then so be it, but what is that? It's not convincing at all, okay? Xiaotan also chimed in. Yes, Brother Ju, even if it's just a trick or a fortune-telling. Didn't you use this trick to trick so many people when you were in high school? This is a skill. A skill. Feng Bujue roared. Stop wasting time. Follow me. He was too lazy to explain. He turned around and crawled into the entrance with an expression that said, It's up to you whether you want to follow me or not. Looking at the entrance that Brother Ju had entered, the 5 looked at each other. After a while, it was Ruoyu who spoke first. I believe in him. Then, she also jumped into the cave. Seeing her cousin go down, Xiao Ling sighed helplessly. Oh well, let's go. Perhaps the boss is indeed a genius. Therefore, Xiao Ling, Xiao Tan, Bu, and Abal followed, at the same time in the Demon City. Master, Oink has delivered SCP-762, Talium, the Cursed Oracle. knelt on one knee, and reported to the Demon King. Where did he go? The leader of the demons held his chin with one hand. His lazy posture also exuded immeasurable majesty and pressure. Why are you the one reporting to me? Huh, that pig seems to be afraid of meeting you again. After he delivered the item, he left me a message and left. Talium replied with a smile. Humph, what a strange piece of trash. The eyes on the leader of the demons' face closed at the same time, and he let out a long sigh. Is this king a murderous demon in his eyes? He tilted his head slightly. He doesn't even have the guts to come to me for a reward? No. Taliomu replied in his usual cold tone. My king's demonic energy is at its peak. Once someone like Oink, who is surrounded by evil energy, gets close, he will instinctively feel fear. This is something that can't be helped. Demonic energy? The leader of the demons put down his hand and straightened his upper body. His eyes changed slightly. Humph, Talium, before seeing the power of that guy, your flattery sounded just boring, but now a hint of killing intent flashed in his eyes. Your words sound more like sarcasm. I wouldn't dare. Talium hurriedly shouted. He changed from kneeling on one knee to prostrating himself on the ground. He didn't even dare to raise his head. That slight killing intent just now had already made Talium's entire body tremble like a sieve, because he understood that the demon chief was in a bad mood these few days. I know what you're thinking, so I want to interrupt. The reason for his bad mood isn't that his period is coming. And when the demon chief was in a bad mood, he liked to kill people at will. Even Talium, a cursed priest above all demons, could be killed because of a careless word. You don't have to be afraid. I won't kill you. After a brief silence, the leader of the demons spoke again. I won't kill anyone anymore. Hearing this, Talium slowly raised his head and said, My lord, I am no longer the same person as before, Talium. The leader of the demons continued, Perhaps King Dianli leaving the gate to the void was a choice of fate. He paused for a moment, and his eyes became distant and disappointed. I once said that if I could meet a demon stronger than me, I would submit to him. Ha! The demon chief actually smiled, and it was a bitter smile. This might be the first time since he was born that he had shown such a smile. Now, I have seen such an existence. He continued, So what if we put King Jianli into SCP-762 and reconstruct the seal of the gate to the void? He shook his head and said, My state of mind has changed because I know that there is an existence stronger than me behind that door. Chapter 701. Normally, if Feng Bujue had to make a random choice based on his intuition, there was an 80% chance that he would choose the worst choice. But now, the power of the title, Divine Foresight, made up for Brother Ju's lack of luck. As long as the skill was not on cooldown, he could complete his choice through divination. For example, Brother Ju had successfully used the skill to locate the mission target. In the past 5 minutes, he had been following the passage downwards at an oblique angle. He did not encounter any obstacles and soon arrived at a very spacious and bright cave. The light source in the cave was none other than the various treasures that were piled up like mountains. You guessed it right. Not long after, Ruo Yu caught up to Brother Ju and jumped into the cave through the tunnel. I told you. Feng Bujue turned back to say, It's not a guess. It's the power of my title. Oh, you have that kind of power? Xiaoling, who followed closely behind, overheard the conversation between Brother Ju and Ruo Yu. She immediately asked, Could it be that it was you who predicted that there would be a skill card in the room earlier? No, Feng Bujue replied. It was the Count of Script who told me in secret. His expression shifted. Why would you think of that? Because you acted strangely at the time. Xiaoling looked at Brother Ju and said, Initially, without any warning, you asked us to search the room. Even though we searched for a long time and found nothing, you showed no signs of giving up. She paused. But after finding the skill card, you prepared to leave as if it was only natural. She pursed her lips. This series of actions gives people the feeling that from the very beginning, you knew that there was only one item in the room. That's impressive. By then, Xiao Tan, Bu, and Ub had arrived at the cave. Bu heard Xiao Ling's analysis and said, "Why didn't I think of that?" Even if you noticed some abnormalities, you might not think too deeply about it. Xiao Ling looked at Bu again and said, "Because that level of abnormality is not enough to explain anything. It was only after I found out that Captain really had the ability to divine that I combined it with what happened earlier and made a guess." She shrugged. "But it turned out to be wrong. You don't have to belittle yourself. Being able to deduce to this extent is already pretty good." Feng Bujue continued. "After all, you don't know about the secret communication between Brother Zun and me. It's impossible for you to draw such a conclusion out of thin air." As Brother Ju spoke, he turned off the searchlight in his hand. There was plenty of light here, so there was no need for any lighting equipment, and walked forward. "All right, let's focus on the treasure in front of us. I'll tell you guys about Brother Zun and me after we clear the dungeon," Feng Bujue said as he walked. "Everyone, be careful. There are no skeletons or skeletons in the cave. This could only mean three possibilities." He paused for 2 seconds and continued. "First, there are no traps or other threats around the treasure. Second, the traps and threats around the treasure have already killed all the treasure hunters who came here before. Third, we are the first batch of treasure hunters to come here. The probability of there being a trap in front is 50%, but if there is, it must be in a state of not being triggered. Don't worry, there are no traps." Suddenly, Dianhai Wang's childish voice echoed in the cave. "I have cleared all the negative flags here. Now, there are only gold, silver, and jewelry all over the ground, and..." When he said this, the pile of treasures in front of Brother Ju collapsed like a landslide, revealing a huge metal box. "A treasure in the pirate world. Humph. If someone else said this, we might believe it." Hearing this, Ob immediately raised his head and said loudly, "But from the mouth of a fellow who wanted to kill us not long ago, only a ghost would believe it." "That's right, Brother Ju." Xiao Tan added, "This is obviously a trap. Please don't. It's fine." Feng Bujue waved his hand and interrupted Xiao Tan. "I know what I'm doing." 2 seconds later, Brother Ju raised his head and raised his voice. "Dianhai Wang, what is the meaning of this? I want to make a deal with you." Dianhai Wang continued. "What the Count of Script can give you, I can give you as well. I can guide you to find the item. I can guarantee that you will clear the scenario, and I will tell you the thing that you want to know." As if worried that Brother Ju would not believe him, he paused for half a second before adding, "I am a god born in the primordial era. The things that I know, the Count of Script might not know, and the things that the Count of Script knows after I completely take over his body, I will know them as well." "Huh?" Brother Ju laughed. "Do you think that's enough? With the same conditions, what reason do I have to betray my agreement with Brother Zun and trade with a stranger like you? You better think this through." Feng Bujue. "At this moment, my control over this brain world is greater than the Count of Script," Dianhai Wang replied. "As long as you stand on my side, the Count of Script's hope of turning the tables will disappear completely. In other words, when you choose my side, you have won." His tone changed slightly. "On the other hand, if you insist on being my enemy, what will happen? Do you have full confidence that you can banish me from this world?" You have a point there." Brother Ju pretended to agree. Dianhai Wang thought that he had shaken the man, so he continued. "One is a deal that is guaranteed, and the other is an uncertain risk. You're a clever person, so you should know what to choose. You're right." Feng Bujue nodded. "Whether you deal with Brother Zun or he banishes you, it makes no difference to me. I am just a traveler from another world, so I am not afraid of your revenge." He scratched his chin and said, "In this situation, if I choose to stand on your side, it will be easier. So, you agree?" When Dianhai Wang asked that, there was nervousness in his voice. "No," Feng Bujue replied with a smile. "You?" Dianhai Wang really wanted to curse, but he could not do that, so he could only suppress his anger. At that moment, Dianhai Wang felt like an insurance salesman. He had told his client a lot of things, and when he was about to sign the contract, the client said, I didn't say I would buy it. In terms of terms, Feng Bujue raised his hand and raised his fingers. Let's talk about it. What do you want? Just tell me. Jianhai Wang was losing his patience. He had not met such a greedy, cunning, and shameless person before, but he had to negotiate with him, because like the Count of Script, he had no way out. This parasitism had taken Jianhai Wang a lot of time and energy to prepare. He had used up all the energy that he had accumulated over the years before he managed to escape from the door to the void and sneak into the Count of Script's mind. He knew that there would not be a second chance. If he failed, he would be captured and become a part of the seal forever. He was so close to success, but he did not expect Feng Bujue, this uninvited guest, would enter this scenario through the Count of Script's guidance when he was about to transform. Based on the system's default plot, the final boss of the scenario was the boy who called himself me in the nursery rhyme. And the first host that Jianhai Wang chose after he entered the mind was the skeleton of this boss. If the players cleared the scenario according to the normal process, Jianhai Wang would lose his host and leave the Count of Script's mind in an extremely weak state. If that happened, it would be over for him. Therefore, this ancient demon had no choice but to compromise and negotiate with Feng Bujue, who was trying to take advantage of the situation. Brother Ju had seen through this already. The one who did not want to take the risk was Jianhai Wang himself. I think how about this? Feng Bujue thought about it and said, first, you can bring all the items and skill card that we can bring out of this scenario and bring them all here. As a way of showing our sincerity. Chapter 702. Main quest completed. When Feng Bujue used the pirate's golden key to unlock the metallic chest, the system announcement came. The quest, follow the current to find and unlock the pirate's treasure, was ticked off. Let me see. Brother Ju used both of his hands to lift the lid of the chest. That is quite a lot. He glanced at the chest and then raised his head to ask, is this all? Yes. Jianhai King answered in a rather depressed tone. I have moved all the high-quality items that you can take away from this scenario into this chest. There are 6 pieces of equipment for consumables, 1 other item, and 2 skill cards. At this point, it hesitated for a moment before adding, that other type of item is what I call the most valuable treasure in the pirate world. Could it be 1 underscore piece? Feng Bujue said as he lowered his head to rummage through the chest. I don't know what you're talking about. Jianhai King replied. The treasure I'm talking about is, it's this. Feng Bujue interrupted him and took out a large silver-plated wine cup from the chest. Item name, Blackbeard's Skull Item Type. Other quality, Legendary Special Effect. Unlock Blackbeard's treasury mark. Some say that after Blackbeard's head was chopped off, it swam many laps around the adventure before disappearing into the deep sea forever. Some say that Maynard hung the severed head on the battleship's tusk and brought it back to Virginia. 1 week later, they boiled Blackbeard's head and wrapped it in silver to make a wine cup. They sent it to the tavern for consumption. Until one day, a group of people coveted Blackbeard's treasures but had no clues. They set their eyes on this silver-plated pirate's head. Not long after, it mysteriously disappeared from the east coast of the United States, never to be heard of again. When Brother Ju picked up his wine glass, he had already waved his hand to signal his teammates to come over and take a look, so they all saw the item description. Although the quality is legendary, it feels like there are a lot of things that people can't understand. Bu said after reading it. Ub also replied, yes, it said that it can open Blackbeard's treasure, but it didn't say where the treasure is. And I don't really understand the things mentioned in the remarks. Something about adventurer, Lieutenant Maynard, humph. How ignorant. Feng Bujue suddenly raised his voice and shouted, you don't even know the basics. Are you still pirates? I'm sorry, Captain. Sorry to disappoint you. Bu and Ub replied almost at the same time, and both of them revealed ashamed expressions. Hey, why are you apologizing? You guys aren't pirates to begin with. Xiao Tan was shocked. And why did you call me Captain instead of Teacher Ju? That's right, Bu said rather woodenly. Ub used his hand to wipe the sweat from his temples and laughed drily. Haha, because Teacher Ju is too imposing, I couldn't help myself. Listen up, the few of you. Feng Bujue, on the other hand, acted like he was still in character. He continued the earlier topic like he was teaching a lesson. Blackbeard, also known as Edward Teach, is a villain among villains, a pirate among pirates. From the moment he stepped onto the Queen Anne's Revenge, in less than 2 years, his name had spread throughout the 7 seas, causing people to tremble in fear upon hearing his name. But after a short period of glory came destruction. In the end, Blackbeard was annihilated under the encirclement of 2 British naval battleships. Adventure was the name of the pirate ship he was on before he died, and Lieutenant Maynard was the man who led the soldiers to kill him. He paused and continued. Actually, strictly speaking, the real cause of Blackbeard's death was hangover. In that battle, if he was sober enough, the Navy wouldn't have stood a chance against him. Unfortunately, there are no ifs in this world. There was regret in his eyes, and he sighed. After the battle, the soldiers found a total of 25 knife wounds and 5 gunshot wounds on Blackbeard's body. This madman fought until the last moment like he was possessed by Dian Wei. At this point, he put on a mysterious expression. After the fierce battle, Maynard ordered Blackbeard's head to be chopped off and the body thrown into the sea to feed the sharks. From then on, the legend of the head spread, and the more famous version is the tomb mentioned in the item's description. He paused and purposely lowered his voice. According to rumors, the Royal Navy searched Blackbeard's fleet but only found 145 bags of cocoa beans, 11 barrels of wine, 1 barrel of indigo, and 1 bag of cotton. There were no gold, silver, jewelry, or treasure maps. With Blackbeard's death, the large amount of treasures he plundered also went missing. Just like what he said before he died, only the devil and I can find the location of the treasure. Xiao Tan, Bu, and Ub looked at Brother Ju with admiration and nodded in unison. Wow, that's impressive. It was unknown when, but the 3 of them had already sat down, and they surrounded Brother Ju, hugging their knees. Those who don't know might think we're having a kindergarten class. Xiao Ling narrowed her eyes and looked at the 4 male players before her rather helplessly. Sigh, which kindergarten teacher would tell children something like this? Ruo Yu held her forehead and shook her head. This was something she did not know. When Feng Bujue was a volunteer, he had told similar stories to the children. Of course, the result was that he successfully got on the blacklist of many organizations, including law enforcement, social welfare, and nonprofit organizations. Is the story time over? At that moment, Dian Wei's voice rang out again. Feng Bujue, I've already shown my sincerity. It's time for you to show your stance, isn't it? Haha, what's the hurry? I still have one more thing to ask you. Brother Ju replied with a smile. After the deal is done, I will naturally tell you everything about that orb, Dian Wei said. But not now. You haven't agreed to anything, so how can I know. Feng Bujue interrupted him. But that's not what I want to ask. As he said that, he signaled his teammates with his eyes and hands, telling them to take out the stuff from the box and distribute it. What I want to ask is, after we've come to an agreement with you, can we still clear the scenario? He shrugged. You should know that the main quest that we have left, the first main quest of this scenario, Find My Bones, is undeniably a quest that targets you and will lead us to destroy you. If we join you, won't that create a conflict with the requirement to clear the scenario? You don't have to worry about that, Dian Wei replied. As long as you follow my instructions, you'll be able to clear the scenario through the hidden plot, and the main quest will change. Oh, is there such a good thing? Feng Bujue raised his brow. In that case, I'll give up on the deal with Brother Zun and form an alliance with you. Teacher Ju, that's too unethical. Bu, who stood not far away, could not stand it anymore. Brother Ju, that's too unethical, Xiaotan added. Stop wasting time. Feng Bujue turned around and winked. If something happens, I'll take responsibility. Seeing that, his teammates understood, Brother Ju had his own plan. Thus, no one said anything else. After all, if something really happened, it would be Feng Bujue who would offend the boss-level NPC in the main universe. Those Zun, King, and whatnot. If they wanted revenge, it would be him. Several seconds later, Dianhai King spoke again. Then, let's sign the contract. At the same time, there was a flash of white light, and a piece of parchment appeared out of thin air. It fell before Brother Ju. Feng Bujue picked up the parchment and mumbled, "Is this for me to turn into a magical girl? Or is it for me to get some ass?" "It's just insurance for our deal," Dianhai King replied. "1 minute ago, you can betray the Count of Script, and 1 minute later, you can betray me. We're all smart people, so I believe you'll understand." Chapter 703. Feng Bujue picked up the parchment and slowly opened it before his eyes. I didn't know it could be done like this. He only took a glance and then raised the parchment in his hand slightly to show it to his teammates. At this moment, the system notification rang in Xiao Tan and the others' ears. Hidden quest has been triggered. The content of the quest was displayed on the parchment. Change the current main quest. You can make the decision, Ruoyu said to Brother Ju almost without hesitation after she saw it. The others also looked at Feng Bujue, waiting for his response. Feng Bujue's mind spun quickly. He spent about 10 seconds speculating the possible consequences of this choice before he said, "No problem, I accept." As soon as he said that, the system notification rang. Hidden quest completed. This is without a doubt the easiest hidden quest that I've ever completed. Feng Bujue replied with a cold smile. Current quest has been changed. Main quest has been updated. Then, a new system notification came. The players opened the game menu and realized that the quest, Find My Bones, had disappeared and was replaced by a new main quest. Solve the mystery of the juniper tree's curse without killing me. Now that things have come to this, can you give us some pointers on what we should do next? Feng Bujue continued to read aloud. Brother Ju was following the principle of it would be a waste not to use it. He planned to squeeze every last bit of value out of Dianhai King. Move the metal box away. There's a tunnel underneath that leads to the location of my bones, Dianhai King replied. I'll help you remove the traps and monsters in the tunnel. As for what to do after finding me, I'll tell you in person when the time comes. Then, as if it had hung up the phone, it did not make another sound. Perhaps it had stopped paying attention to the players, or perhaps it just wanted to pretend that it had stopped paying attention to the players to prevent Brother Ju from making more unreasonable requests. Hello? Hello? Are you still there? Can you hear me? Feng Bujue immediately raised his head and shouted twice, but all he got was his own echo. That's enough. Stop shouting. If I were it, I'd pretend that I wasn't there. Ruoyu patted Brother Ju on his shoulder. Guild leader, it's time to stop, Xiaoling said. After all, we've already benefited a lot from this. Xiaotan nodded. Yeah, we've taken a bunch of items and avoided all the potential dangers along the way. By the way, speaking of items, I was only looking at the skull earlier. I only gave the rest of the items a cursory glance. Feng Bujue turned around to ask, what did you guys take? I took the 2 consumables. Ub was the first to answer. They are items to replenish life points, but they are not supplements. Bu continued, I took the 2 skill cards. Look, they're all here. As he spoke, he displayed the 2 cards in front of everyone. The first one was Name, Spirit Butterfly Shadow, Skill Card Property, Active, Permanent Skill Type, Fighting Sorcery Effect. With high agility, combined with rush, inflict multiple damage on the enemy, cooldown of 10 minutes, consumption, stamina points 800, sorcery points 80, learning requirement, fighting mastery A, sorcery C remark. This is a high-level fighting skill from the Dragon Slayer chapter of the 7 chapters of the Ghost Valley. Requires a person with speed, sorcery, and strength to learn this skill. A swordsman will be able to unleash its full power. The second one was Name, Mekatok Power Skill Card Property, Active, Permanent Skill Type, Workmanship, Summoning Effect, Perform a Shocking Invention, Cooldown of 1 hour, Consumption. Stamina points 13. A pile of metal objects larger than 1 cubic meter. Learning requirement. Workmanship B. Summoning C. Remark. This skill can create 4 random items. They are 1. Repair robot. Can exist for 15 minutes. Multiple repair robots can exist at the same time. It can repair broken or trashy mechanical objects, returning them to normal quality permanently. 2. Pygmy poultryizer can exist for 15 seconds. Multiple pygmy poultryizers can exist at the same time. It can turn a creature, not effective on creatures or players that are too strong, into a chicken, and it will return to normal after 3 seconds. 3. Navigation chicken can exist for 2 seconds. At most, 1 navigation chicken can exist at the same time. After it is formed, it will run toward the nearest enemy unit. 4. Bravery robot 3000 can exist for 3 minutes. Multiple bravery robots can exist at the same time. It is a mechanical creature with high defense and a threatening appearance, but it has 0 offensive power. It can only block attacks or carry heavy objects for its owner. Other than the navigation chicken, all of these creatures can be controlled mentally or commanded through voice. Not bad, Fong Bujue said to Bujue after reading the description. That butterfly shadow, are you interested in learning it? If not, I think it is more suitable for passing rain. Haha, Teacher Ju, you were joking again. Bujue laughed. My fighting mastery is not even A, and my sorcery is only E. Just based on the description, it is not suitable for me to learn it. Then what about Mechatork's power? Fong Bujue asked again. My workmanship is already B, added. But my summoning mastery is only F. To learn this, who knows how long it will take. Then give it to me. My workmanship and summoning mastery are both qualified. Fong Bujue then asked Bujue and you don't mind, right? Of course, replied. Everything in this box was obtained by you through negotiation, Teacher Ju. Even if you take it all without asking, we will not say anything. Then I will accept it. Brother Ju said as he accepted the 2 skill card from Bujue and passed one of them to Ruo Yu. But, by the way, Bujue seemed to have noticed something. He placed his finger under his lips and said thoughtfully, Teacher Ju, what is your mastery? Since you can learn Mechatork's power, it means that your workmanship mastery is already B and your summoning mastery is C. He paused. From your performance at the tournament for the butterfly, your fighting mastery is definitely at a, and earlier, you use a ranged weapon to kill a giant monster, so your marksmanship mastery is also, in any case, it is quite high. Fong Bujue gave an answer that was as good as not saying anything. Bujue and Bujue were not dumb. Once they heard that, they understood that the topic had ended there. As members of a large guild like Heaven and Earth, they naturally understood some of the rules in the circle of professional players. The character data of high-end players was top secret. Most people were unwilling and unable to reveal it. Professional players would sign a contract with the workshop. Buo also blurted out what he was thinking in his mind at the same time. That was why he said this. All right, now that we have seen the skill cards, let's distribute the equipment. At this moment, the quick-witted Xiao Ling spoke up at the right time and changed the topic. The 6 pieces of equipment will only be bound to you after you equip them, so I'll keep them first. As Xiao Ling said that, she took out the first item from her inventory, and the item that she chose was the only perfect item among the 6. Item name, Vanguard's Shield Item Type, Armor Quality, Perfect Defense, Extreme Element, Buffer Special Effect. When equipped, increase life points by 7%, slightly increase recovery speed of life points, 70% chance to block 30% damage from normal attacks, other than special, powerful, and skill attacks. Equip requirement, level 40. Bound after equip can be taken out of the scenario. Yes, remark. The Vanguard Shield left behind by Gul'dan's Knight of Death. It can easily block any threatening attack. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.